Welcome in, everybody. Today is the 24th of August, 2020. It is Monday. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you're new here, you should know everything on my videos, all these live videos, are unscripted. There is no camera operator. There is no editor. There is no script. There's no, it's just me. And it's live. And I like to interact with the viewers. So if you'd like to join us in the chat room and not only interact with me, but interact with other folks in the chat room, it makes for a very unique experience with all kind, friendly, and supportive individuals, which is a rare find on the internet. And I'm very proud of this community. Hello to all my friends in blue. Thank you, Alan Bradburn, for that $10 contribution kicking us off. Getting a little bit of an earlier start than the later start that often happens, and we're going to do a couple of things today. I have about 7 computer builds waiting. I also just got the last of the parts I need to rebuild Threadripper to Gen 3, with much thanks to Anthony Remus at Remus Computer Solutions, not only for the sage advice coming from real world experience. He's not an internet expert. He actually does these builds for a living, and I trust him 100%. And I know that if this doesn't work well for me, it's on me. So my appreciation and gratitude to Anthony Remus and to the many contributors and benefactors of the channel that have made purchasing those parts even a possibility. The processor is a 3960X, which I think is around $1,400, which is more than just that one piece, just the CPU, is more than the cost of entire systems I generally build. So it's a fun little plaything, experiment. You don't really have any need for it. We have the YouTube videos that are awe-inspiring. You look at some of these builds and they're just jaw-droppingly gorgeous and meticulous handcrafted work. But what you end up building at home is not likely going to be that for a number of reasons regarding the skill and the expense, and oftentimes the fickle nature of some of the hardware. So what I like to do on my channel as a real working computer technician who has real customers, and I've been doing this professionally, meaning I have been paid day after day, week after week, month after month for 29 years, closing in on 30 years, that holds me accountable, responsible, and liable to the suggestions I make and the work that I do. And it's a freedom that many tech YouTuber content creators have, that they're not held accountable to anything they do. They're just maybe held accountable to the sponsor that's paying for all of it. Well, nobody's paying for any of this but actual customers, or if it's a system build for the channel, then it's happening because of contributors like you guys. So that way, everything I'm saying is coming from my own personal experience and my perspective from that experience. It's not being bought and paid for or filtered or censored because it's not what a company wants to hear. I'm nobody's puppet, and not yet. Somebody's got to write a check big enough, I'll consider it. But the bottom line is that's not likely going to happen because I'm very, very expensive to be a puppet. And there's a level of money that gets stupid where if you won't take it, well then, perhaps this isn't the right line of work for you. Everybody's a prostitute. We just negotiate on the price. No, but the bottom line is that for the most part, a lot of what you see on YouTube, on the big channels, they have employees, they have editors, they have camera operators, they have really nice and expensive equipment. And that's all paid for through sponsorships. And those sponsorships quite often don't pay very much, so you need a lot of them, And then you end up just being a commercial maker. And I never wanted to start YouTube and to start my channel to make commercials for big corporations. It was never in my playbook. I'm not interested in doing that. It's sort of like I went to school back in the 80s. I went to college to be, coincidentally or ironically, in cinematography. And the instructor let us know that in Phoenix, there's not a lot going on in the movie industry. If you want to get into movies, you got to move to Hollywood or you got to go to New York. If you're going to stay in Phoenix, best you'll probably do, this is an exact quote, is making safety training videos for employees of large corporations that are headquartered in Phoenix, like U-Haul. And I just thought, that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to become, I wasn't interested in cinematography so I can make employee safety training videos for U-Haul. But that's the only opportunity for the most part that exists where I live, and then you have to go and move to where the opportunity is. That's why so many people move to Los Angeles to become actors or get into the movie industry. But the world is changing now, and everything's not so isolated to specific regions anymore. It's just now starting, especially with the pandemic. It's kind of boosting that along, and it enables us to work to do whatever we want to do wherever we want to do it. I mean, I think that's wonderful. So we can get rid of these overcrowded urban downtown areas, and we have all the space. If you're watching from another country, the United States is a big place, and yet when you look at it from space, you'll see little spots of just huge crowds of people. They're just all crammed in, Boston, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. They're all just kind of crammed in, and then there's all this empty space that nobody's using. And when you cram a bunch of people in like that, it creates overcrowding, it creates tensions, it creates prices going up, tensions going up, stress levels going up. But you go to where the work is. All the work is downtown, so you want to live in a suburb, for example, of a big city, so that you can get a bit out of that rat race, but you're still in a big suburb. For example, the city I live in is a suburb of Phoenix. It's attached right to Phoenix. The population of this city is over 250,000 people in one city. One city, 250,000 people. Now you compare that with the city I grew up in. I don't think that city's 3 square miles in diameter. And it's very, very different. And some people, especially when you're younger, you want to be where it's happening. You want to be around the noise. You want to be around the crowds. You want to feel like, hey, I'm where it's happening. I do believe that that's all starting to shift, and that the importance of everybody all being piled into one location for economic reasons is slowly starting to fade, and we can kind of go back to the way things once were before this consolidation of location. People used to live on pretty large areas of property with farms, and I think for those of us that are wanting to get back to that but can't, that is now starting to become a possibility. Being able to work remotely, once we can get broadband to some of those rural areas that don't yet have it, in places or services like Elon Musk's internet service is maybe a solution to that. We'll find out in time. In the meantime, what I've got to do today is a couple of things. I'm going to get to Threadripper. Hopefully, I don't know if I'll get to it this week. I'll try. Certainly by next week. The two things I need to do today are I need to build a new system. This is for a gentleman. His name is Roy. And Roy wants that same configuration. I've been telling you guys, everybody wants this configuration. So when I say everybody, that's my way of saying, in my world, from my perspective, from the people that are talking to me and ordering, they got money in hand, this is overwhelmingly what they want. So I don't want you to misunderstand when I say everybody. You have to understand it's in my shoes. If you were hearing what I'm hearing from the people that are holding money in their hands, overwhelmingly, they want the system I'm building today, which is the same system I built last week, which is the same system. There's evidence backing up what I'm telling you. Now, it's not a question of Intel over AMD. It's really nothing about that. If you want to build your first computer, this configuration is a great place to start. It's reasonably priced. It's very easy to put together. I ordered these motherboards, these H370 HD3 motherboards from Gigabyte on this configuration because they're $100 motherboards. And I always pair them with a K processor. And this confuses people who don't have a grasp of how the technology, what the technology actually is. See, there's a whole class of people on the internet that believe that the only reason you would want a K processor is to overclock it. They don't understand the other benefits such as the CPU is faster out of the box by 10% than a non-K processor. And sometimes the price difference is like $5 or $10 between the two, especially if it's on sale. For example, the 9700K processor was $350, then it went to $325. Now I think it's $320. So the 9700K processor is $320. That's 8 cores and 8 threads. If you want to go to 8 cores and 16 threads and go just 100 megahertz faster, you would go to the 9900K, but you'd spend $100 more for that. Except Newegg just had a special with a coupon code where they were giving you 25 bucks off. So I ordered 3 9900Ks because it was $75 more. It was $399 instead of $325. Gives me the 16 threads instead of 8, and it's only 100 megahertz faster. Honestly, it's probably still not a good deal, but given current market value, it's a good price, and I've got 3 of those coming. Now, those will equally work as well on an H370 HD3 board. In fact, it won't really push the processor very hard, and as a result, that processor is likely going to last forever, like throughout your entire lifetime. If you were to keep it and put it in a closet after you were done with it and fired it up 30 years later, it will probably still be just fine. I don't know what good that does you, but it's an interesting observation. So when you want to overclock and push things to their limits, you generally reduce the lifespan. You consume electricity cost, which makes the ownership of the computer cost more over time than a comparable machine. And most end users don't notice any difference whatsoever in the performance. And I'm speaking to you as a technician who talks to customers. I'm not speaking to you as an enthusiast who's trying to crank out 2 more frames per second because my benchmarks define my happiness. This is about being practical, and I feel it's a big part of YouTube that's missing. It's all very, like I said, there's many videos that are awe-inspiring, jaw-droppingly gorgeous. And I do like to touch on a little bit of that. That's what this is right here. This is my jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring build. But as a professional working technician, this is a hobby. This is fun. Nobody's paying for this. This is something I'm just doing for fun. That's why it has to sit and wait until I have time. Because when customers are waiting with cash in hand and they say, hey, I want you to sell me a computer, that has to be prioritized in order to keep my lights on so I can afford to do stuff like this. So this may sit a while until I get caught up. This is a fun, jaw-droppingly gorgeous and inspiring build, and I'm very much looking forward to the day when I can have some time to do it. But work must come first if I want to stay in business. And what I've done is I ordered all the HD3 motherboards, the H370 HD3 motherboards Amazon had. They had 3. I said, give me all 3. Then I looked at the Amazon warehouse deals, and they had 3 in the Amazon warehouse. So I bought all 3 of those. Now, all the boards have come in. They've all arrived. And one of the open box warehouse returned items, the H370 HD3, was sent to me just like this. It was just a motherboard and an anti-static bag, an instruction manual. There is no box. There was a shipping box, but there's no motherboard box that would typically come with the board. And I can't help but wonder if one of these 3 warehouse boards that I got is one of the ones that my client had sent back because of the date. So I'll be checking the date on all these. I'll be updating the motherboard on all these, but I don't have time to check all 3 today. So instead, what I'm going to do today is we're gonna just slap I got my old Core i5 from my desktop just sitting around. I got my old CPU from my Core i7 965. I'm not gonna put any thermal compound on it because all I wanna do is test it. I just wanna see if it boots, make sure it works, update the BIOS, and put it away. And then I'll say, okay, that can be used in a future build. And I will repeat this process with the remaining 2 boards later on. So we'll start with this one. We'll see how it turns out. Because I have a return window, I need to sort of check them ASAP. If they have any problems, I can send them back to Amazon, easy peasy. I just want to find out. In most cases, all these Amazon warehouse products I've purchased have all been perfect. Beyond that, there are parts for today's new build, and that includes a GeForce GTX 1660, Remember I said this basic build was very easy to add a graphics card to. Just bump up the power supply a little bit, and that's what Roy has done here with the EVGA 600 watt bronze, 80 plus certified. He also added an Asus AC1300 PCIe Wi-Fi adapter, which came from Amazon Warehouse, which Roy didn't knowingly order from. But because of time constraints and because I've had such good luck with warehouse items, we're going to move forward with it. It'll probably be just fine. And then we're going to stick with, we're doubling the RAM to 32 gigs instead of 16. We're sticking with the 970 EVO Plus 2 terabyte for solid state performance. And it is an i7 9700K, which as far as I'm concerned, at $320 is one of the best values on an Intel chip that's out there today. This is a chip, when you pair that with the Scythe Mugen 5 cooler, it's going to be dead quiet. It's going to run forever. It's faster than any computer you probably ever used. And I'm sort of amused when people are so focused on frequency, right? So when I start these computers up and they boot into Windows, feel free to take a stopwatch or notice the time on the video to see how long it takes to boot into Windows. The reason I want you to do that is when you hear anybody say, well, you could turn XMP on and you can do this and you can overclock that, how much gain is left? In other words, if we're going to boot from a cold, turned off standpoint, turn it on, and we're in Windows in 15 seconds, how important is it to boot in 13 seconds? Like in your world, does that 2 seconds justify spending more money on cooling and spending more money on parts? If so, then do it. But for the rest of us, I want you to realize it's going to be so amazingly quick. For anybody to say that that's not fast enough, those are very difficult to please people. The amount of return you get on investment starts diminishing as you spend more money higher up the tier. And if that's what you want, that's fine. It just, in business, it's not a practical investment, as there's not much return on it. As we reach these point of diminishing returns, it makes less and less sense to spend more and more and more just to achieve 1 more second of performance or 2 more frames. Now, for other people, and I'm going to say very few but very loud people, that's of critical importance to them. But they both have more time and money than anybody I know. And the people that I know are the customers that keep me in business. Those kind of people, they don't bring me any business at all. Never, 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 never. So I'm not too concerned about what their thoughts are, and I hope you're not either. Remember, when we're done, measure the boot time. And when you hear anybody suggest that that could be made better, how much better and at what cost? That's what you've got to ask yourself. Because at 15 seconds, I mean, that's a hard to please person. They make minute rice now for the microwave oven. There are people who can't wait 1 minute. That's not fast enough. We need to make this for the microwave. That minute rice takes a whole minute to make. Why can't they make this in a microwave so we can do it in 15 or 20 seconds? Well, they do. And hey, if you want to participate in that, man, don't let me get in your way. But here with paying customers, where I have to support the system, and it's my reputation on the line if the system is unstable, or if the customer finds they spent all this money and at the end of the day they really didn't get much more in performance, and then they feel like I ripped them off or I misled them or deceived them, that doesn't sit well with me. So we're just trying to keep things practical, down to earth. And let's just start this real quick. Let's test this board out. I'm very much hoping that one of these boards has a date set to 3029, because I know one of my customers returned a board for that reason. That means it probably went back to Amazon Warehouse and was resold. The question is, what happened to it? I'm hoping it just kept getting returned because nobody could figure it out, and then I ultimately ended up back with it. So we have 3 motherboards to test. I will do 1 today. I'll try and do 1 each day this week. And we'll use the same parts over and over and over again. I'm hoping I find that 3029 BIOS date. It is worth mentioning that BIOS was fixed on the H370 board. As far as I know, the F15 BIOS that's available now will not allow you to put a date in beyond the parameters that they identify in the BIOS, which is, by the way, what every motherboard manufacturer does, except apparently Gigabyte. Gigabyte says, put in the date, it must be within this range, but then they don't enforce that rule, meaning that you can you can mistakenly fat finger the date and then save the BIOS, and it takes it. No other motherboard manufacturer does that. And to the best of my knowledge, Gigabyte did not fix this on all the boards. As far as I know, they only fixed it on the boards that I brought to their attention, which are just 2 out of the models they have. Now, whether or not they address it with new boards moving forward is yet to be determined. However, be aware of that, and it is only Gigabyte motherboards that are potentially problematic because of their refusal or their neglect of enforcing the date. Every other, I want to emphasize this, every motherboard manufacturer of every model motherboard enforces the date. If you try and enter a date too large, it will set it automatically to the highest date allowed. So for example, if the highest date allowed is 2099 and you set it to any number larger than 2099 and save it, it will save it as 2099. If I put in 55555 and save, and I go back and check, it'll be 2099. ASRock, MSI, Asus all do it that way. Gigabyte lets you put in 3029 and save it, and then when you go back in, it's right there at 3029. Then Windows doesn't install. Windows locks up, and then you think, oh, it's a brand new build. I've got some bad RAM, I've got a bad power supply, I've got a bad motherboard, I got a bad SSD, maybe I got a bad flash drive, or I've got bad Windows installation media. And you end up replacing every single component. And even when you change the motherboard out and you reboot from that same media onto that same solid state drive that has the failed Windows install, and you say, well, let's see if it finishes now. Not only does it not finish, it sets the BIOS date back to what caused it to lock up. So you have to completely format the solid state drive or whatever media. It doesn't have to be a solid state drive, but whatever you're installing on. If the installation was started with a date beyond, I don't remember what the limit was, but when it goes above like 100 years, it won't give you any error message. And furthermore, when you change the motherboard out, the minute you boot from that same device you installed on where the install failed, and you're like, let's continue the install now with the new motherboard, save a little time, it resets the motherboard date back to 3029 or whatever you had it at. So the only way to fix that, of course, is you have to reset the date by hand. And when you install the Windows, when you start the Windows boot media, you have to completely delete the partitions on the drive with the proper date, and then restart your installation from the beginning, and then it will complete. Only Gigabyte motherboards are potentially affected by this. No other motherboard manufacturer. It's a very easy problem that people don't realize, that they fat fingered a date. It's a typographical error that gets saved and allowed by the BIOS. To the best of my knowledge, the latest BIOS for the H370 enforces the date. And there's another board, I think an Z390 board, where Gigabyte had a BIOS update that fixes this. But to the best of my knowledge, Gigabyte did not go back and fix all the previous BIOSes. It's not a problem you should ever have, but it is a problem you could have if you were to go into the BIOS and change the date beyond the allowable range. And as a result of that, it creates a very, very difficult to diagnose problem. It shouldn't be allowed. It's very simple to enforce the BIOS date rules. That's why every motherboard manufacturer does it. Why Gigabyte doesn't do it? Maybe it was an oversight, maybe it was a cost savings. I don't know what's going on over there, but be aware of it so that you don't fall victim to it. And that's why I always say it's important to have the latest BIOS update at all times on your motherboard so that you avoid the problems the BIOS update fixes. Motherboard manufacturers often give you this boilerplate disclaimer that says don't update the BIOS unless you need to. I'm saying update the BIOS before you need to. I prefer to be proactive. They would prefer you be reactive. There's no reason to not update your BIOS. There's no danger in it as long as you download the right BIOS for the right board and do it when there's no power outage. Don't interrupt it. I might run an experiment when I have time, and we'll pull the plug on one of these motherboards while BIOS updating just to see what happens to the board and if we can recover it. But that's really the only potential harm. I was actually updating a BIOS the other day. We had a big monsoon storm. Wind was blowing, trees were blowing sideways. Lightning is flashing all around me. And I was updating the BIOS and I thought to myself, probably shouldn't be doing this right now. It was fine. Probably, if you're not a technician, if you're having inclement weather, I would suggest, unless you have an uninterruptible power supply or a generator, you don't want the power interrupted during a BIOS update. That's it. That's your big fear. I've lost power here about once or twice a year. We'll lose power. But so far when it's happened, either I wasn't home or I was asleep. So it so far hasn't impacted me for many years when it has happened. But there are, right now a car could careen through a red light and smash into a power pole at any minute and cut power to the whole neighborhood. That has happened. You never know. You never know. So there's no guarantee, but statistically speaking, it's very unlikely. But you will decide. If you live in an area that has frequent power outages, get yourself an uninterruptible power supply or a UPS, plug your computer into that, and you'll be fine. No issues. Anyway, so I want to try this out. Like I said, I've got my old 8400 i5 right here, and my old cooler from my i965. And because this is all going to be temporary, I just want to see if it works. I'm not going to put any thermal compound on it or anything. The chip's not going to get that hot. We're not going to run it that long. And the chip would go into thermal junction and save itself. If it were to quote unquote overheat, it won't damage the chip. But I wouldn't sell it to a customer, nor would I put it in regular use without having proper cooling. But for what we're doing here, we're adjusting slightly to optimize for time and efficiency, and it isn't adding any risk because of how limited we'll be using the system today. Now, the only thing I'm truly concerned about when I get these returned or used parts from Amazon are the little tiny screws on the M.2 standoffs, which on Gigabyte boards are pre-installed. And I checked all of the motherboards, and as you can see, we've got that little tiny screw there, there's one right there, and there's one right there. There should be 3 of them on an H370 HD3 motherboard, and this has all 3. I've checked all the other boards, they're all there. That would really upset me if that little tiny screw is missing. It's critically important if you want to use that slot. Now, for the boards and the systems that I build, traditionally I'm only using just one slot. However, if the customer should want to utilize that later, they would need that screw. And I don't want them to find out a year and a half from now that that's not there. So it's supposed to come with the board. If the board's missing it, that would be reason for me to return the board back to Amazon. Everything I've received from Amazon has been, so far as I can tell, complete. This is the only exception in that it didn't come with a motherboard box. It was just literally in an anti-static bag, wrapped in bubble wrap, and put into a shipping box. That's fine. It doesn't matter. If it works, it works. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is we'll pop open the CPU cover, and we take a quick look at these pins, and I can see a little bit of damage just now, and it may or may not be a problem, but if you look carefully up at the top, you'll see there's a formation, okay? And then if I tilt it back and forth, something should draw your eye that's just shaded a little different. The color is reflecting, or the light is reflecting a little differently, right on that top left side, if you can see it. Now that may or may not be an issue. I don't know, but it's certainly something to note, because if I have to send the board back, it's something that I will bring to their attention. Now, you can use a magnifying glass. I have some very powerful magnifying reading glasses. They're 4x power, which are very, very strong. And we can take a closer look. And even at 4x, I can't really tell. And that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. Because if it's really obvious, if the pin is physically bent to a visible to the naked eye level, to an extreme, then certainly the socket has been damaged. Now, it shouldn't hurt anything to put a CPU in it and try it. It should not cause any harm to the CPU or the RAM or the power supply. It just, maybe it won't boot, or maybe it just acts flaky. So a board like this, even if it does post, it'll be important for me to give it a very, very thorough test. Not all of those pins are always in use. Some of them aren't in use at all. And if it's a pin that isn't in use, they're not going to have gaps, in other words. They're going to fill the whole socket in whether or not they use those pins or not. So we don't know what that pin does. It may just be there for support. It may be there to do a critical function. And so through thorough testing, we can ensure that the board is stable or not stable. And if it's not stable, we don't have to guess. Is it our RAM? Is it our power supply? Is it our video card? We know right from the get-go we have a potential socket problem. On the other hand, it may not be a problem at all. So the only way to know, I mean, you can jump on forums and you can ask people, you can take a picture, say, hey, what do you guys think? None of that matters. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. What you have to do is you have to put something in it and try it, and then, and only then, will you have the answer to your question. Hey, would it work if I did this and this? I don't know. Try it. For as much effort as it took you to ask that question, you could have just done it, and you could have shared your story with us. Hey guys, I wanted you to know I tried this and this, and here's what happened. That would be more beneficial and more useful to everybody than asking people to speculate and look into their crystal ball and tell you what's going to happen if you do X, Y, or Z, that the results will be A, B, or C. That's preposterous. So at some point, you need to just sort of try it. Try it. What is the potential harm? What are you avoiding? What is it that you're afraid of? Hey, can I put this RAM in? Will it match with this? I don't know. Try it. Try it. Click, click. Done. Turn it on. Does it work? No? Okay, now you know. Tell us. It frustrates me. It frustrates me to see people who have the ability but are afraid to exercise it. And I really wish people would comprehend the risk is basically zero, and that when somebody speculates, the information is 50-50, but when you actually test it for yourself, you'll know the answer for sure, and you'll know it faster. And then what would be great is if you would then share that experience and say, hey, I just want you guys to know, I have this memory, blah, 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 and I had this extra memory that has these specs, and when I put them together, they worked great, or they didn't work. And then that can help guide other people versus, pick a number between 1 and 10 is effectively what you're doing when you ask questions like that. And nobody can really give you any definitive information because they don't have those parts. Only you can know the actual true answer. There may be situations where people say that should work, or people will say it shouldn't work. And then when you actually try it, you find the exact opposite is your reality. And it's your reality that it's the only thing that matters. That's the only thing that makes a difference, not what somebody thinks about it. So bear that in mind. I'm just going to pop this cooler down. Oh, I guess I'm not. You know what? This cooler is slightly too big. My bad. I was optimistic that they hadn't changed the cooler design. This is slightly larger because it's socket, I don't know, what is that, 775? I don't remember. But it's a different socket. So that's fine. I have lots and lots and lots of coolers. This is a small stock cooler from an Intel chip here that is going to be adequate. It's got a copper core on the bottom of it. And again, we're going to keep it free of any thermal compound for testing. There are a lot of people who think they're working with experimental electronics, like they're in a lab at MIT. These are consumer electronics, which means that they are very, very, what's the word I want? They're not indestructible, but they can take a lot of abuse, and they can go through a lot of extreme, unintended installation methods, or basically because it's consumer, it's extraordinarily rugged. It has to be because, you know, consumers. As such, it's pretty difficult to cause harm to this stuff without really trying, but you can do it. It's not a challenge. But this also isn't the kind of finicky experimental electronics that you deal with in a lab at MIT. Okay, that's a different story. And a lot of people seem to confuse these. They seem to think that these systems are more fragile or delicate, when in fact, if it's sold to a consumer, it is not fragile or delicate, not if it's electronics. It is always going to be very, very, I'm going to find the word, it begins with an R. We have our I/O shield, which has been opened and was taped closed, so I do know that this board was used. Apart from the fact I didn't get a motherboard box. I need a power supply, so I'm going to just borrow the 600 watt power supply that we're going to use on today's build here for a moment. This is the EVGA, the 600 watt. And it's brand new. As you can see, everything, as I mentioned on my videos, is all live. Nothing's been test fitted, nothing's been rehearsed. So if there's a dead on arrival product, you'll see it. Sometimes people will ask me, how often do you get dead on arrival products? I'm like, watch my videos. How often do you see dead on arrival products? Knowing that I haven't rehearsed with them or practiced with them, because you can see me undoing the cellophane and cutting the tape that seals the box live, you know it's a real live unboxing. And it's pretty rare that we ever see something not work. We had a power supply from EVGA, brand new out of the box, that didn't work fairly recently, about a month or two ago. Before that, I can't remember. I think I had a stick of RAM that was bad, just out of the box. It's very infrequent because the automation involved in manufacturing, it's all being done by machine. And the machines are always doing it the same over and over and over, and then it goes through a quality control, and it runs a little bit of a little disruption in the stream, but we're okay. But anyway, what I was saying was the automated process in manufacturing now increases productivity, and the quality of is consistent. So it's pretty rare that something gets out of the factory in a non-working state, but things can happen in shipping and handling where the product may be mishandled or stored incorrectly. That can cause, a failed part on arrival. I mean, for all I know, everybody handled it right except for your delivery man, who decided the best way to bring it to your door was to drop kick it. That was my... Maybe that's how your local delivery man brings packages to your door. You're like, Carrie, everything I order is DOA. What's going on? How come you have such a good experience? And yet I'm like, it's probably your delivery guy, man. He might be an ex-field kicker for the Cardinals. I don't know. But it's very unusual, and it's not normal. All right, so here's our EVGA bronze 600 watt power supply, which we will borrow here for just a minute. And all I need to do is hook up two cables for the motherboard, and I'm going to use this Evo Spear memory that was pulled out of one of the AMD systems for compatibility reasons. And we should have no compatibility issues with any RAM on any Intel motherboard for any socket 1151 Intel chip. As far as I know, there is no such thing as a RAM incompatibility. That is a reality that only exists for AMD owners, specifically AMD Ryzen owners. And, Intel's had 10 years to mature itself in the market. AMD's only on their second generation, right? 2.5. And it's going to take them a little bit of time. It took Intel a little bit of time for that to settle in, for all the compatibility to work correctly. And they're just not quite there yet. So when building AMD, always make sure to do your research and buy AMD compatible memory. G-Skill Flare X, or the Neo memory, is designed specifically for AMD chips. And that just means you can't bargain shop. You can't go looking for the cheapest memory. I mean, you can, and you can roll the dice and hope it works. On Intel, you can shop solely by price, and it'll work. It'll just work. So be that as it may, haters or non-haters, that's just fact. I can't help it if you don't like the facts. It's not on me. I didn't decide it. It's not my decision. That is the current state of the two platforms right now. And AMD will get there. I promise they will get there. But in the meantime, just be careful that you select compatible parts, particularly with the RAM. Now, I'm going to put the 24-pin CPU, not CPU, the 24-pin motherboard connector on right here. And we're just going to keep this open, not mounting it in anything. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to use the integrated graphics built into the chip. We're not going to put a graphics card on here. We want to minimize the hardware options to avoid any potential issues and isolate strictly the board, as this is a test. This is a verification that the board works. So we want to keep everything as minimal as possible to get this to turn on, if it will turn on. If it doesn't turn on, there still may be an issue with this RAM. I'm not sure. I know that CPU works just fine. It came out of my office machine. I've been using it for 2 years, over 2 years. And I just bumped it up to a 9700K because I had them laying around. It seems stupid for me to be continuing to use an i5. Well, an i7, multiple i7s new in boxes sit on shelves collecting dust. I might as well put them to use, right? So I know the CPU is good. I know that CPU fan's fine. It's not going to matter anyway. Brand new power supply. Let's hook it up. So we've got the keyboard and mouse right here. And if we come around, I will plug in the keyboard into a USB port. And we're going to need a power switch. So I've just got a switch I've removed from an old case. You can use either a reset switch or a power switch. They're both the exact same switch. Electronically, they're identical. It's just where you plug it in. That's what makes it. A power switch is a reset switch if you plug it into the reset header. A reset switch is a power switch if you plug it into the power header. They're both just momentary contact switches. And what they do depends on where you plug them in. So this, for example, this was originally a reset switch. For people who don't believe me, this is a reset switch. And I'm going to plug it in to where the power switch goes, right here. And you'll see it's going, I haven't plugged it in, I haven't plugged the power supply in, but when I hit this, it's all going to turn on. After 29 years, it's something I can state factually without any concern of being wrong. Sometimes you'll have somebody in the chat room that'll say, yeah, but if you're in space on the space station and I'm like, no. Then technically what you're saying isn't true. Okay, but I know for a fact that even then, this would still work the same. Okay, so right now, the status is we've got the HDMI cable hooked up to the capture card. So that's basically the back of your monitor at home. CPU and RAM are installed. Power switch is hooked up. Power cables, CPU power and motherboard power. That's all we need. That's it. Now, I also downloaded the latest BIOS and put it on a flash drive, just in case. I'm going to think positively that this is going to boot. And we'll make sure the switch is in the off position on the power supply, because we don't want to arc it or anything when we go to plug it in. Just avoids that sort of shock to the electronics, specifically to the board. So we're going to plug that in. And then once that's fully seated, we can flip this on. Now the system did not start on its own, which is also a good sign. This is exactly the way it should be behaving currently. Now, when I hit this button, you should see this fan spin. Now, if I zoom this in a little bit so you guys can see a little better, bring that right there. Are you with me? Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit this button, and then I'm going to switch over to camera input 2, which will be this video output right here. But I can't, I want to do one, and then I'm going to do the other. Okay, so we're going to turn it on. We're going to see that that spins. It is not spinning right now. So my only concern now is whether or not I have the switch plugged into the proper pins. because I'm doing everything backwards, I realize I've plugged into the power LED section. I went to the first 2 pins because I'm talking to you and I'm not fully paying attention as I should be. I don't have the focus I should have. I need to go 2 pins to the left on the top row. That is where the power connector or power switch is to go. Now let me hit the switch. You'll see everything lights up here. Now let me switch over to camera input number 2. And let's see if we get a power on screen. Now we see no signal currently, but it's going to give it, oh, wait, there it is. It actually happened quite a bit faster. Let me try and get into the BIOS and see what the date and time are. Ah! Yes! Yes! Oh, I'm so happy right now. I am so happy. Oh, that makes me so happy. Okay, why am I so happy? I know exactly why this motherboard was returned. I know exactly why. Did you guys see it? Who in the chat room saw it? Look at the date. This motherboard, Windows 10 will not install. Absolutely will not install with that date. Not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Notice the BIOS date is F13. Now the latest BIOS is F15, and I think simply by flashing the BIOS, we're gonna just run an experiment right now. We're gonna leave the date all alone, and we're gonna only update the BIOS and see if the date changes because Gigabyte fixed it for this board, for this model. Okay, I don't know what's gonna happen right now, but I am anxious to find out, and I'm giddy and I'm happy because if you join me on the Y3K video, this is exactly what it was about, that it only affects Gigabyte motherboards, no other motherboard manufacturer, and it affects every single Gigabyte motherboard currently made, as far as I know, except for the ones where they have updated the BIOS to address it. Now, it's a very simple little problem that is a nightmare if you don't know to look for it. I spent hours looking for it, and even then, it was the help of the chat room that said, hey, Kerry, did you notice the date? Now, I've seen date issues cause all kinds of weird computer problems in the past, but nothing like what I saw with Windows freezing and then even a new motherboard continuing the Windows install reset the BIOS in the new motherboard to the date of the old motherboard without telling you that it did it. My hairline used to be right here. If you watch my videos from the past, my hairline was here. After this problem, my hairline moved up about 1.5 inches. Don't let this happen to you. Save your hairline, that's all I'm saying. Okay, so we're gonna shut this off. I'm just gonna hit the power switch. We should see all the lights and everything go off. I've got the latest BIOS already downloaded. I'm ahead of the game on this one. And we're gonna plug this in. And once more, we'll turn this on and we will hit the delete key. And let me go back to camera input 2 so we can take a look at the BIOS. Delete, 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 delete. Come on, get me in there. Come on now. There we go. And let's scroll over here to, where is it? It's down here at the bottom. There's a little down arrow. Q flash. Update the BIOS. I'll just hit enter. There's the BIOS on the flash drive. Remember, we don't have any storage on this motherboard. There's not an M.2 drive, there's no SATA, there's no storage on this motherboard except for that flash drive. So the only place the BIOS has to go look, it's only got one place it can look, and that's that flash drive I just plugged in. Prior to that, there was no storage. I want to emphasize that for diagnostic reasons. We're going to keep it intact, which is already highlighted in yellow, so all I have to do is press the enter key on the keyboard, and it is now updating the BIOS. As I mentioned, this is not a scary, fearful process. It is not a big risk. In fact, if you have a pre-built machine from Dell, HP, Acer, Asus, or a laptop, the manufacturer of those pre-builts makes it impossible for you to screw it up. If you use their driver update utility, which every manufacturer gave you when you bought the machine new, you might have uninstalled it because you thought it was bloatware, but you can go and get it again. Just go to the support page from the manufacturer for your specific model. You can use your tag number if you have a Dell. There's a tag number on the back. Or you can just simply enter your make and model and then download the, for example, the Dell driver update utility. And that will include getting you the latest BIOS. I keep it on my Dell XPS 15 laptop. It is critical that you get all of your drivers for your video card and everything else from the manufacturer on those laptops. If you try and download, for example, an Intel graphics driver or an NVIDIA graphics driver onto a laptop that has a Dell or an Intel, onto a laptop that has an NVIDIA or an Intel graphics card, it will say, the driver will come up and say, your hardware is not supported, this driver won't install, please get it from your manufacturer. This is a problem you won't have if you build it yourself, right? So if you build a machine like I show you, then you can go right to Intel, use the driver Intel Update Assistant and get all your drivers. If you build AMD, you can manually go to AMD's website on a regular basis. Since they have no auto updater available, it just doesn't exist. You'll have to go on a regular basis and check the website for newer chipset drivers. They will auto update on the Radeon drivers, and I think they might check for updates on the Ryzen Master software. But the chipset itself, if you don't go and look, you won't get it. Although eventually it will be offered through Windows Update after it's, a couple months old probably. So if you want it sooner rather than later and you want the benefits today, you have to manually go and do that. Now, if your AMD system is made by Dell or HP or one of the big manufacturers, well, then you would go to them and use their driver update utility, and you wouldn't have to do anything more than that. So in any event, we've already installed the BIOS. The system is restarting on its own. I'm not touching anything. The whole time I'm talking to you, I'm looking right at the camera, even though that's not turned on for you guys. My hands are moving as I speak. I am not touching the computer. I am strictly just looking at the camera and talking. Now, when we go take another look at this updated BIOS, we should be on F15. Yeah, so F15D as of today. Today's the 24th of August, 2020. Look at the date now. Now they've enforced the date. They have put it to the maximum allowed. This is literally what ASRock, Asus, and MSI do by default on every model motherboard. And this is only something new Gigabyte started doing because I brought it to their attention. Now, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because I'm ticked off. I shouldn't have had to. I should not have had to do that. But here we are, regardless, and we do have a result. Now, Windows will install with the wrong date. It's fine. It's only if the date goes beyond like 100 years that it has a problem. Once Windows installs, if you allow it to, when we install Windows, it asks for privacy settings, and I always leave location on. The reason I leave location settings on is so when I connect to the internet, it will automatically set the date and time for me, and it will adjust it because these time clocks on computers they lose a couple minutes every month or whatever. That's normal, and it'll keep adjusting it and fixing it. I won't have to keep doing it by hand. If you want to do it all by hand, knock yourself out. So in the meantime, it doesn't really benefit me to keep the date there, but I'm just fascinated that that's what this BIOS update apparently is part of the reason why this BIOS update exists. So today is the 8th month, enter. It is the 20th day, enter. And it is the year 2020, enter. I don't really care about the time. The time is completely irrelevant, but since I'm in here, it's military 14, enter, 58. I don't care about the seconds. And then I'll move the right arrow till I go to save and exit at the top of the screen. I will press enter, and I will press enter. We're good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, this board is fine, and I know exactly why it was returned to Amazon. I don't know with regards to that weird reflection on the pin that seemed like it was just a little out of sorts with the rest of them. It doesn't seem to be having any negative effect. However, because I can and because it's quick, we're going to do a real fast Windows 10 installation on this just to verify that everything's okay. So I've powered it off. I'm going to remove the BIOS flash drive, and I'm going to grab, where is it? This one right here. This is my Windows 10 media. Oh, I don't have a storage device. I'm going to need to put a storage device. Tell you what, I've got one of those Samsung 860s laying around from Thready. Where did I put them? I'm going to hurry. I want to move quick because I got to start building Roy's machine here, and time is ticking. One of these was formatted and had I'm super hyper today, bear with me. One of these drives has not yet been formatted and still has Windows 10 on it. The other two, because Thready had 3 of these, what I ended up doing was I formatted 2 of them and installed Windows on one of them, and I ended up pulling all 3 out. And then I put one back in Thready, which is the machine I'm using to stream to you now, and that was one of the unformatted drives. So we're down to 50-50. Regardless, if this has Windows 10 on it, I'm going to erase it and do it again. I want to make sure that this machine will install Windows 10 without an error. If it does not install Windows 10 without crashing, then I know that that socket is an issue. However, even if it does install Windows 10 without a problem, the socket may still be an issue. That's why we'll do further testing. I fully anticipate this is all going to work just fine, and I don't think the socket is going to be an issue, but I wouldn't sell it to a customer without running it through a few more tests just to make sure that I had confidence that it wasn't likely going to come back to me. Again, it's harmful to my reputation. Customers don't like it. I don't like it. Let's do this one more time. We're going to fire this up. It should automatically boot to the flash drive unless that M.2 drive has Windows 10 on it, in which case it may just boot right into Windows 10. Even though Windows 10 was installed on Thready and this is an Intel system, Windows 10 is pretty cool that way. So it does appear this error message is coming from the M.2 drive, that there is a driver that Thready has that's not compatible on the Intel system. This is very interesting to me as a tech, and I'll tell you why. I can often remove a hard drive from an Intel system and place it into an AMD system or vice versa, and Windows 10 will still boot. But sometimes, sometimes it won't. So there's 2 things I want to do right now. One is I want to shut the machine off, and I want to go back in the BIOS and make sure I load all the default values. Even though I verified the time it changed, I didn't check anything else. So if this install was done with AHCI turned on and now the BIOS has AHCI turned off, you would get a similar error message. Although I wasn't reading the actual error, I'm not paying that much attention. I'm just reacting to a generic blue screen. And I know that that M.2 drive has an install from a completely different chip and driver setup, which shouldn't even be used. Even if it did work, I wouldn't want to use it for fear that there could be some problem down the road. So we want to start with a clean slate. So when I start with a clean slate, I want to make sure my BIOS settings are set to default. So all I have to do, swing right over here and load optimize defaults, press enter, save and exit. All right, I'm going to do one more thing. When I save this configuration, I'm now going to press F12. If you look at the bottom of the screen, it says F12 is the boot menu. And here it comes the boot menu, and this is what we want to select, is the UEFI SanDisk Extreme. We want the UEFI one. Now we're going to boot off of that flash drive, which is our Windows 10 installation media. And this is what you would do if you had a computer you were giving away and you wanted to wipe it clean and you didn't want anybody to get your stuff back. Now, this isn't a secure erase, but it's a good enough erase for the average user who doesn't know how to get stuff back. And we're going to completely do what we call a nuke and pave. A nuke and pave means we're going to completely wipe out all the partitions on the storage device and let Windows recreate, reformat, and reinstall as though it was a brand new build. And anything that was on that drive will cease to exist. Now, somebody who knows what they're doing could theoretically run some software and recover some of your personal files. However, think about who you're selling the system to. If you're selling it to a friend or somebody you know that's not real computer savvy, it's not a real concern. On the other hand, if it's going to an unknown third party, for example, eBay or a charity, it may behoove you to simply remove the storage device and keep it for yourself. That way, nobody can get your stuff back. It is impossible to securely erase a solid-state drive. And the reason for that is the solid-state drives have provisioning areas that are inaccessible to the end user. And so any programs that wipe out data, they will wipe out basically 98% of the drive, but there's still anywhere from 2 to 10% of the drive, depending on the configuration, that you cannot access through any drive erasing software. As a result, The only way to ensure the complete removal of the data is to physically destroy every little chip on the solid state drive. And they make drive shredders just for this purpose. Now that is extreme. Like your data would have to be so critical that you would be so worried that somebody would get your stuff because you're so popular and you're so famous that you're a highly targeted individual for data theft. That may be something for you to consider. For the rest of us that are just average everyday Joes, and we've got maybe QuickBooks or Quicken information or spreadsheets, things like that, the wipe that you can do with software is probably going to be good enough. So it all depends on who's trying to recover the data and what tools they have. The government has some tools you don't know about. And the way solid state drives work is pretty fascinating, and how they have provisional areas that are not user accessible. And so while you think your drive is completely empty, there may be other files still accessible on the individual chips that can be retrieved by individuals with the right tools and the right knowledge. And so by shredding the drive, or by physically destroying each chip on the drive, that is your only guarantee if you're that paranoid. For the rest of us, just doing what I'm doing is all you have to do. We're just going to do a regular Windows 10 install, and after we accept the end user license agreement, it's going to ask us where do we want to install. We always choose custom regardless, but normally when I do a brand new build, it just says drive 0 and the entire space of the drive is there. There are no partitions. But as you can see, we have 4 partitions on drive 0. Now, as long as we have everything off of this drive that we want, we've backed it up, then what we're about to do is going to completely erase this drive. And that is, we're going to select each partition and hit delete. It warns you, man, when you delete this partition, all your stuff on that partition is permanently erased. When they say permanently erased, they mean without any special software or special hardware, you cannot get this data back. Good, that's the way I want it. Be very careful when you select this. And we're going to do that 4 times to erase all 4 partitions. Having done that, the drive now is in a brand new state. It is exactly the way it was when we took it out of the box 2 years ago. This is what it looks like. Then we continue our install no differently than a brand new build, and it will repartition and reformat that drive while installing Windows 10 at the same time. It's pretty easy stuff, folks, but it does have dire consequences if you choose incorrectly or you go, oops, wrong drive. For example, if I had 3 drives installed on here instead of just 1, and I accidentally selected the wrong drive, there's no undoing this easily. At this point now, you're going to become a data recovery expert if you don't have backups. You should have backups regardless. I feel like I might get into a car accident today, so I'll buy car insurance. That's how people treat their backups. I'm going to do something to my computer. I'm going to install something or change something, so I better back my stuff up. No, you need to back your stuff up every day, or as often as possible that you have to wonder, what if my machine is stolen? What if my machine gets infected? What if I get ransomware? What if my hard drive fails? Right now, do I have everything I need backed up? And if the answer is no, make your backup. Don't wait and think, well, I'm going to make a change, but before I make that change, I better back my stuff up. Your stuff should have already been backed up. You cannot predict failure in most cases or data loss. In fact, everybody who has suffered data loss, they all have the same thing in common, whether they suffered it through a robbery or a ransomware or, oops, I accidentally deleted that. The one thing they all have in common is none of them were expecting it to happen. It's insurance. I'm not expecting to get into a car accident when I drive my car, but I carry car insurance just in case. Your backup is your insurance. Just because I'm not driving my car today doesn't mean a car is not going to careen off the road and into my driveway and slam into my car and then drive off. Oh, it happens. Now, what am I supposed to do? Well, thankfully, I have insurance for that. Even though my car was parked, I wasn't even driving it, that still happened, or it could happen. Likewise, even though you had a hard drive running for 10 years, it's never had any problem, all of a sudden tomorrow it stops working with no warning. What do? It's your data, it's your loss. If you don't protect it, well, you know, how's anybody really going to help you if you haven't? If you call me because your hard drive failed and you've got a backup but you don't know how to restore it, any technician can help you. But if you don't have a backup, nobody can make one for you after, nobody can get you car insurance after your accident happened. You have to have it before. And if we could foresee it, well, that'd be a great world, wouldn't it? Unless you're an insurance company. So if your stuff's important to you, back it up, and back it up again. Back it up 2-3 times. Make copies. Make duplicates so that no matter if something happens to the copy, you've got the original. If something happens to the original, you've got the copy. Keep the copy in a different location. If something happens where there's a flood, a fire, a natural disaster, a robbery, with the backup somewhere else, whether that's in the cloud or maybe you take it to another building, a friend's house, work, get it out of the building if it's important. If it's not important, well, then accept your risk. Sorry, we're finalizing our Windows 10 install. I always install Windows 10 without a connection to the internet, or it will force me to create a Microsoft account, an online Microsoft account, which in order to create a local account, you have to have no internet connection. So because this is just a test, I'm just going to put the word user in here. And I need to make my screen a little bigger because I can barely see what I'm doing. Full screen, full screen, full screen. Okay, I got to spell it right. And I'll just enter a blank password so it doesn't ask me. This is that location setting I was telling you about. I leave that on. So again, the date and time will be set automatically. And everything else I turn off. These are just opinions, okay? It's not a right way or a wrong way. Decide for yourself. Know what each setting does and whether or not that would benefit you. Because I don't know you, I don't know what benefits you. Now, it's going to finalize the installation. As we can see, everything is running exactly as it should be running. And I am excited, I am thrilled, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I got a motherboard with a 2030 BIOS date. That just, I don't know if you can tell. I'm not sure how obvious this is. I am so excited because what bothers me when I buy a returned product is I don't know why it was returned. Did somebody buy it and then they changed their mind? Or did somebody buy it and they got in trouble? Hey, I didn't permit you to buy that. You didn't check with me. Or did somebody buy the wrong thing? That's not what I meant to buy. I was drunk shopping and this showed up. I don't even remember ordering. Or does the product have a problem? And is the problem obvious? Or do you have to use it a while? And as you can see, with a BIOS date of 2030, as proven in previous videos, I learned the hard way, Windows 10 won't install. And you're going to think you've got a bad motherboard. So it gets returned. But if you know what to look for, and you know that's a common problem, specifically with gigabyte motherboards, you got a good board. There's a good chance there's absolutely nothing wrong with that motherboard. And by the way, if the very first thing that person did when they got their system, when they got their board, and it posted, instead of going in and fudging around with the date, if the very first thing they did was update that BIOS, like I always recommend, it would have never allowed them to put the wrong date in, accident or otherwise. It won't permit it. And the latest date it allows, Windows 10 will still install on without any problem. And it will self-correct with the location settings turned on. It will reassign the proper date and time both on the local system hard drive and in your BIOS. So it's completely hands-off if you follow the right procedure. And this is why I emphasize, be proactive. Stop being reactive. Stop waiting till you have a problem to fix it. And on the other hand, don't try to fix problems you don't have. In other words, if there's a BIOS update, it exists for a reason. I don't need to know why, I just want it. But I'm not going to monitor temps on a system. Why should I? Unless I'm looking for a problem. If the system's running the way it's supposed to run and I'm happy with its performance, why would I go looking for that problem? Leave it alone. Don't go creating a problem. So I want to make sure that there's no confusion about being proactive and having technochondria. Technochondria is a technical hypochondria that exists within the community of enthusiasts that believe that they have to check the temperatures of everything all the time, except for everything else in their life. They don't know the operating temperature of the engine in their car. You know, they don't know the operating temperature of the compressor on their refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? They don't constantly measure what's the temp of my cell phone. Who cares, right? When the cell phone gets too hot, it gives you a message. It says the cell phone's hot. Leave your cell phone on your dashboard for a while. You'll get the message. There's nothing you need to fix. Just take the cell phone off the dashboard. All right, I'm thrilled. Now, let me just give you an example, talking about what I was talking about earlier, about how fast these computers are, so that if anybody criticizes, that you can understand what they're criticizing, you can put it in perspective. We're looking at a boot time of, I'm going to guess, 15 seconds. Now, some people will say, well, that's only boot time. If you used your computer for X, Y, or Z, then you would notice the difference. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. Why would they assume that you use your computer for X, Y, and Z, and that you should care about that performance difference? Because if you're like most average, ordinary computer users, you are not that demanding. You want email, you want to access the web, you don't want to wait all day. There may be a few games you like to play, there may be, I don't know, applications you want to run. And you are very unlikely as a human being going to notice the difference from an i7 9700 to a 9900 to an AMD 3700 or even a 2700. You're just unlikely to notice any difference in that whatsoever through normal operational use. However, there are a very minute, tiny bit of really loud enthusiasts who put extreme importance on that little teeny tiny bit of performance increase. And they'll spend a lot of money and use, oh, you got to have a liquid cooler. Oh, and make sure you install it right, because if you install it wrong, it'll make noise and prematurely die. Or better yet, run the system the way it was intended, save your money on the cooler, buy a regular tower cooler, run it at stock, and have it run with no trouble for years and years and years and years and years, saving you money and having a reliable and very fast system. Enough talking, let's measure our boot time. I'm going to switch over now to camera 2. Right now the system is turned off. Let me put a screen in a screen so you can accurately measure the boot time on this. Where am I adjusting? I'm adjusting camera 3. No, see, this is why I need somebody to operate these cameras. All right, we're gonna put me right there. That's good. And then camera 2, for some reason I resized that. Let's fix that. Transform, fit to screen. Okay, so I'm up here. Pay attention to the clock below the video and watch how many seconds it takes for us to get to a desktop. Click, here we go. Fan is turning, system will post. The post completes. Now the system loads, and desktop. How many seconds? Can anybody tell me? How many seconds was that? Now, if you're like most ordinary common computer users, that blows your mind. All right, so keep in mind, the people who say, yeah, but when you do this or when you do that, the next question for you is, do you do those things? Because if you don't, then their point has no point to you. All right, and if you do, then you have to determine if what they're saying is important, is worth the added cost. And only you can decide that. But this is a Core i5. This is an i5 that's 2 years old. Now watch when I shut it off. I'm going to grab the power button here, and I'm going to tap the power button. Now you can do this on any computer. It's safe. It's just like going to the start button and choosing shutdown. It will shut down all open applications. It's not a hard power off. It's a soft off. Watch, I tap the button, it cycles. It's already off. Did you see it? The fan is stopping. Boom, fan is done. Fan is stopped. We're going to do it again when I hit the power button. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Fan is spinning. Lights are on. There's our post. There's our desktop. If anybody says that's not fast enough, I mean, seriously, would you notice if that booted up 2 seconds faster? Would you notice $300 missing out of your checking account in exchange for that? That's the point I'm trying to make here. Let's be practical. Let's do what makes sense. This i5 has served me for over 2 years. I had no complaints. The only reason I bumped to a 9700K is it was sitting on my shelf. Do I notice a little performance increase in my system? I do. It is a little teeny tiny bit more responsive. But was it required? Like, am I able to do something now I wasn't able to do before? No. If anything, sometimes it feels a little too quick, if I have to be honest. Like, I go to double click something I didn't mean to double click on, and it's already started. I can't cancel it. It's just boom, it's there. You know, I bring up the browser, like, oh, I didn't want the browser. It's fast, but it was fast before. It's just a little tiny bit faster now. And is it worth the added cost? That's only something you can decide. But as you can see, a Core i5 on a clean install is a very fast booting machine. And we're not even using a top-of-the-line M.2 drive here. This M.2 drive is over 2 years old. If I put a Samsung 970 EVO, it'd go even faster. But when I say even faster, we're talking milliseconds, maybe a second or two. That drive would cost $350 for a 2 terabyte Samsung 970 Pro. Samsung 970 EVO Plus on Amazon today is $349, 2 terabytes. This is a Samsung 960 EVO 500 gigabyte that's free because I have it laying around. I'd say that performance, free versus $350, it's not rocket science to make up your mind which one's the better investment. Now, clearly, if you need more storage space, that's how you use your computer and adjust accordingly. However, most of my customers absolutely do not use more than 100 gigs of space over years and years and years of using their computer. And you will see it if you look at my repair videos. If you look at the videos where I'm doing cloning and I'm replacing somebody's mechanical drive for a solid state drive, I got about 10 of those videos. They're real customers. They're real computers. And they're typically 500 to 1 terabyte mechanical drives, of which the customer is using 10% in most cases, 20% at the most. With few and far exceptions, that is the general rule. Now, we do have some power users, we have some extreme users, but they know their needs. They're not asking me for any advice. They already know their stuff. They're already, knowledge-wise with technology, they're up here. And so my channel isn't for them. My channel is for the regular folks, the people who aren't technical gurus. But we all have computers in our lives, and most of us are mystified by them. And I'm here to show you this stuff's super easy. It's real super easy. And don't let those enthusiasts intimidate you or scare you with buzzwords and jargon that's completely irrelevant, or over the diminutive returns over some extreme hardware, which is difficult to install, has a limited lifespan, and can be quite expensive. So, regardless of that, this is why I do what I do. I have completely ignored the chat room this whole time because I was really wanting to get this out of the way. I could take a breath. I wanted to spend 20 minutes on this, and I've gone an hour and 20 minutes without any distraction, and it still took me an hour and 20. I realize I am providing a boatload of information to you rapid fire. And the reason I'm doing it is because you can always rewind this video and play it back and re-listen to it as often as you need to, rather than have me omit information that may confuse you, right? So either I make the video shorter and I'm less talkative and I convey less information, that leaves you with potential gaps that I don't, I can't foresee those gaps. Or I give you all the information as I'm approaching it, telling you everything that's going on, which makes me a lot more talkative and it makes the information coming at you seem relentless. However, because it's a YouTube video, you can go back, you can rewind certain areas, you can re-listen to areas that you are stuck on or aren't clear to you. And then if you're still not certain, please put your question in the comments below the video. If you're watching live right now and you have a question, please ask it in the chat room. We have a lot of people that are very knowledgeable in the chat room, It's not just me answering questions here. I'm not the end-all be-all Mr. Knowledge. I never claimed to be. I make mistakes. I don't know everything. In fact, I would say I don't know more than I know. So for that, we have a lot of very helpful community members. And while I will do my best to answer your question, don't be afraid to also accept answers from this wonderful community that we've created here. I want to say thanks to all the people who have contributed thus far and are helping to keep me sponsor free. Stephen Bernstein sent he gifted a significant Amazon gift card to the channel, which is going to help pay for Threadripper, and I appreciate that more than you know. And it bothers me when someone contributes generously and I can't do something for them. So I'm hoping maybe I can send one of these computers to Stephen and to other contributors as well that have been profoundly generous. I want to do something for you. Otherwise, I feel like I'm taking without giving something back, right? So for those really generous contributions, which are very rare, I want to identify those individuals, give them the proper credit, make sure they have my personal phone number and can reach me anytime for any reason. And if I have a system around here that I want, I'll send it to them. Like I would feel better giving something to those individuals. Right now, all I can say is thank you. For the other contributions, the standard contributions, those add up to be significant. And I thank each and every one of you for that. And of course, if any of you who have contributed want to talk to me personally, I'll avail myself to you because I believe in give and take. I don't believe in people just taking, and I don't believe in people just giving. There's got to be a back and forth. And I want you to know that regardless of your contribution, the very fact that you've done it at all means a lot to me. And for those very few individuals that just, it's almost overwhelming, their generosity, I want to make sure that I can do something even more for them. I hope I'm making myself clear on that. All contributions are appreciated. And I just want to acknowledge those who have contributed thus far during today's live stream. And that is starting with Alan Bradburn, who contributed $10 before the stream even started. John Blue Nose Studley with a £1 contribution, and Sharon Idle with a £1 contribution. And I want to say this with these £1 contributions. Sharon Idle has probably contributed 1 or 2 pounds 50, 60 times. You know what I mean? So it all adds up, and that's why I appreciate every single, because people are in different positions in life, right? Some people may not be in a position where they can contribute financially, but you can still contribute to the chat room. You can still be a nice person, and that costs you nothing. You know, you can still share the video links on your social media. It costs you nothing to do it. And that is a way of contributing. I also have the Amazon link. If you shop at Amazon in the US only, and you use my Amazon link, you still buy the same stuff you always buy, still pay the price you always paid, still get the free shipping you always got, but now I'll get a small commission from your purchases. And that's another great way to show your support. So it's not just about people having money. It's not just about that. It's about just being nice. Just be in the chat room and be nice to other people. That's one of the best contributions of all time, honestly. So I look forward to turning more and more people blue. All those people you see in blue have proven to be nice, considerate, and generous people, whether they were not just generous financially, in some cases never gave a contribution financially, but what they're contributing to the community by participating and being kind and friendly to others, maybe first-time watchers, is enough for me to say, you are an example of what I want this community to be, and I'm going to turn you blue to identify that, to separate you out from the others, so that people will know, if I'm talking to somebody in blue, I am talking to a mature and kind individual. And if anybody in blue betrays me, well, I just remove their blue status. And then if they realize they made a mistake and they want another chance, of course they'll get another chance. But that's how it works here. It's a very fair system, and it rewards those who exhibit mature, kind, and supportive behaviors, because it's such a hard thing to find on the internet. And we have a sea of blue here, which is amazing. You will probably not see anything like this anywhere else on the internet today. And it makes me so proud. You have no idea. Forget all the computers I built. This community that we are building together, from a kid who grew up without any friends, as an isolated black sheep who didn't fit in, you have no idea what your friendship and kindness means to me. Going on with the contributions, Jack Wilson contributes $25. Again, speaking of generous contributors, I would love to get a computer into the hands of Jack Wilson, just to say thank you. I'd love to build one of these for you, John, and mail it to you. No charge, just because you've always been so kind and you've been so supportive. I really feel like I owe you, and I would feel so much better if you would let me do it. John contributes, or he likes to be called Jack, contributes $25, and he says, this is just for you, for being you, and of course, the doggies too. Yeah, it's about an hour and a half from feeding time. Thanks for your friendship and your contribution, Jack. Rick Rubisat with a €5 contribution says, just keep on going, Carrie. I still enjoy all of your streams and your view on the world, and have a Coke on me. Right on, thank you. Abdul Azim Patel with it appears to be a Tom Jackson inspired contribution of $7.77. Abdul has been a frequent contributor here. I certainly need to give Abdul more shouts out. Thank you, Abdul. Barry Russ with $2 says, such great learning information. Thank you. Security Van Man contributes $4.99. He says, buy a cola. Thanks for all the great info. Right on, thank you. Cooter contributes $5. He says, would your regular build be okay for light video editing without adding a graphics card? It depends on the editing software. This i4, what's an i4? This is an i5 8400. It's been in my office computer for over 2 years. September of 2018 was when I installed it in an ASRock Z370 Pro 4 motherboard, which I think I made a video on here somewhere in the sea of libraries of videos I have. And I was toying with CyberLink Power Director, the latest version, 365, using the built-in integrated graphics, and I'll be darned if it didn't render the video perfectly and within a reasonable period of time. Now, it doesn't render as quickly. If I have a 10-minute video, I can render it on this i5 with integrated graphics on the latest CyberLink Power Director 365 in MP4 format in about 7 minutes, 8 minutes for a 30-minute video. Now contrast that to having an RTX 2080 on a, the old streamer's a 3900X with a 2070 Super. It would probably render that same video in 2 minutes. But who cares? While it's rendering the video, I'm still answering emails, I'm still browsing the web, I'm still using the computer while it's rendering the video. So it could take an hour and a half for all I care. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I have to leave the computer and can't do anything else with it. When I'm surfing the web and answering emails, the computer doesn't respond any slower because it's rendering a video. And then I go, oh, I forgot I was rendering a video. I completely forget most of the time. And I see the little icon on my taskbar and I click it and it says, your project finished an hour ago. So yes, it will absolutely work for light video editing at 1080. Now, if you want to edit in 4K or you want to do 360-degree videos or things like that, VR videos, it's going to struggle. But 1080, I'm doing it myself. And on the short videos, it's really nothing. It's nothing. It totally handles it with CyberLink Power Director 365, latest version, 16 gigs of RAM, and an i5 8400. And I've been doing that for the last 2 years. I did it as a joke the first time, and it blew me away. Because sometimes when something renders and you play it back, the render's messed up. There's artifacting and the transitions are corrupted. It renders perfectly every single time. And the longer and more complex the video is, the longer the render's going to take. But it will do it. And as it's doing it, you can continue, I'm going to say it again, you can continue to use the computer for everything else you would normally use it for. You don't have to walk away and wait for it to finish. Continue using your computer. Browse the web, whatever you do, read your email. Whatever it is you normally do, keep doing it. And in the background, this thing will be running. And when it's done, it's done. If you're in a hurry and you've got a bunch of work to do, you want to have a more powerful CPU and a more powerful graphics card so that that will happen faster. That's it. It's the only difference. How fast. We're buying time. Thank you for the question. That was from Cooter. Thomas Robinson contributes £2. Gary, excellent AK-47 assault rifle video. Well, somebody found my gun enthusiast videos. I haven't been promoting them because of the culture in America right now. It's very divided, and so I'd rather not rock the boat. I have my personal hobbies, and I was sharing them all here on YouTube and decided to stop sharing the gun enthusiast videos because it was starting to divide my audience, and that's not why I'm here. I'm here to bring us together. And since I realized that's such a divider, I didn't remove the videos, but I'm not adding to them either. And honestly, I haven't had any time. So, but I appreciate that you found it and you enjoyed it. Joseph Hawkins with $5 New Zealand says, I like to give a little, it's for a good cause. I've learned a lot while watching these builds. Well, thank you, Joseph. Wayne Trexler with $1.49. Again, Wayne Trexler has contributed $1.49 at least a dozen times. So these small contributions, they do add up and they do matter, and I appreciate it very, very much. Alan Maybreyer with a $5 contribution says, hello to you, Carrie, and to everyone in the chat. It's always good to know I have the friendly community. Have an amazing night or day, everyone. Everybody's welcome in this community, Alan, as long as you're not a jerk. It's a pretty low bar, and it's amazing how many people get kicked out because they can't achieve that. But you, my friend, I'm so glad to have you a part of this community, and I hope you're going to be a part of it for a very long time. Chris Mole contributes £10. He says, definitely worth it just to see that date pop up. I know, right? George Z contributes, well, I missed a lot here, didn't I? $5. And Mira Ora with a nice $20 contribution. He says, for someone looking to switch from NVIDIA to AMD, would you recommend waiting for Navi 2 or go ahead and buy the 5700 XT? The reason I want to switch is because NVIDIA doesn't work well with Linux. That's NVIDIA's fault, he says. I'm really not the best person to answer this question because my most recent experience with AMD on their graphics cards is this Sapphire Nitro Plus Vega 64 that I'm running in Thready, and I hate it. I hated it the day I unboxed it. I hate it today. It was $750 of crap, and I should have bought an NVIDIA. Now, that's because of my needs. I don't use Linux. I'm not a Linux user. I'm running a business where customers call me and pay me to assist them. Linux is a free operating system that mostly people who download take care of themselves. Well, you can get work in Linux. It's not a lot of choice like there is in Windows. Like the opportunities to make a living off of Linux are far slimmer than the opportunities of making a living from Windows. It's not a preference. It's not my choice. It's just the way it is. So because of that, I can't advise you as to which card is better, especially because you're using Linux. Never mind that it's Radeon, which I have very limited experience with. I know Radeon most recently corrected a driver issue that has been haunting Radeon users for a couple of years and only just now fixed it, like within months they fixed it. Radeon also didn't offer any updater until about a year or 2 years ago to let you know a new driver was available. So for me, I prefer NVIDIA. Because I prefer NVIDIA, I have no reason to go to Radeon to try them because I'm not solving anything. Like, why would I step away from something that's working great and replace it with something else for no other reason than just because? That's not good business. So there are probably YouTube channels that specialize in Linux in the way that you want to use it, that address the very concern that you have. And while I appreciate your contribution and I appreciate your question, I don't know the answer to it, and it would be irresponsible for me to guess. Now, there may be some folks in the chat room who have an opinion, who know way more about it than I do, but always know there's always something new coming out. After Navi 2, there'll probably be Navi 3 and Navi 4 and Navi 5. And, oh, should I wait because this one's coming out? Well, there's always something coming out. So if you wait for the next thing to come out, then you'll always wait for the next thing to come out. That's all I can say about that. As to the benefits, the risks, the costs, I don't know in that platform. I really honestly don't know. Rock and Rob with $5 says, phew, I finally made it. Hope you and the chat had a great weekend. Hey, thank you, Rock and Rob. Flappity with a £5 contribution says, hey, Carrie, I've been away. I'm happy to be back watching you and have a Coke on me. Well, thank you, Flappity. Adam Burdick with another contribution, this time $5. He says, you give enough by making these great videos. That's very kind of you. Gainsy95 contributes £5 and says, this is because I want to support the channel. Again, just being here, being a part of our community, being friendly, being supportive, that is supporting. Financial contributions, that support are also appreciated. Not expected, but always appreciated. 5Arg Tech, I still don't know, is it Sarge Tech? Because 5Arg Tech is like really hard to say. Contributes $5. Says, knowledge is power, and you have the power. Thank you, Carrie. Great work ethic. I just want to stay in business, man. You know, I don't want to rip people off because then I won't be in business very long. I'm hungry and I want to eat, but I know I'm going to be hungry tomorrow and I'll be hungry next week and I'll be hungry next month. So if I just burn everybody and take a bunch of cash now, how does that help me in 6 months? So I am forced to have a good work ethic in order to keep eating. It's not necessarily a choice so much as a mechanism of survival and sustainability. And sustainability is the key word here. 29 years is pretty sustainable. I mean, that proves some level of sustainability. John Williams with a $5 contribution and Daniel Navarro with $4.99 says, Carrie, it's always a pleasure. Here's a little more contribution. And for Lyle and Jimmy. Right on. Well, again, thank you, Daniel, John, Sarge Tech, appreciate it. Chris Kingan with a $5 contribution says, keep on keeping on. Right on, 10-4, good buddy. Miguel Lima contributes £5. Wow, that was a dated reference, wasn't it? Sorry, it just occurred to me what I just said. Breaker 1-4, Breaker 1-4, anybody out there got your ears on? Over? Yeah, this here's Big Rabbit, and we got ourselves a bear over on 405 southbound exit 132. Remember when that was a thing? Huh? The internet, before the internet, it was called CBs. There's ham radio operators going, what are you talking about? I still do this. My range is just bigger. Miguel Lima with a £5 contribution. So Carrie, I really enjoy this video. May I ask, what wireless microphone are you using? So in the video notes below this video, there is a link and it says, if you want to see all the products I use on my videos, from the screwdrivers I use, this keyboard and mouse, this Lazy Susan, the camera, the tripod head, the microphone, the memory cards, the capture card, the cables, these cables, all of that is in the Amazon store. Long answer short, it's a Sennheiser wireless microphone at $600. I replaced the lapel mic, which is worth about $130 when you buy the $600 Wi-Fi kit, wireless kit. This is a, it's not the Countryman. I can't remember the manufacturer. The lapel microphone, this little piece right here is $600, just this piece. And then it's wired into the $600 wireless kit, which has a receiver on the camera. I didn't have to do this. The $130 microphone that's included with the $600 Wi-Fi wireless microphone kit from Sennheiser is adequate for YouTube, but I wanted to move my audio up to the levels of like 60 Minutes or television news. And there were 3 major manufacturers. Countryman was one. I want to say it's DPC or something. I need to make a little correction. It's a $500 microphone, and it requires a $100 adapter to plug into the wireless part that I'm wearing on my belt. This little part right there is $100, which is preposterous. You know, that part In standard electronics, this part should be about $2.50. But in professional audio, there is high profit margin, and you're not going to find it for less. So that little adapter right there, that's $99, but in this microphone is $500. It's all listed in the Amazon store, and all I'm trying to do is, have better quality audio. And again, when people contribute to the channel, I'm not buying a Tesla, I'm not buying a yacht. I'm buying better equipment, I'm buying more equipment, and I'm putting all the money back into the channel, even if it's parts to rebuild a Threadripper machine, which I don't even need, because at this point we're all sort of invested in it. It's been 2 years. This is the first time in a long time I put it to use, and it is working, but I still don't like the performance of it. And just buying the new Ryzen chip was $1,500. That's without the cooler, without the RAM, without the motherboard, which all have to be replaced. That's only possible through the contributions, and it's evidence that proves to you that money's getting all returned back into the channel so that you have more stuff to watch, and we can share these experiences together. Because if you're thinking of spending that kind of money, you should know what to expect as a result. It's not all flowers and rainbows the way some YouTube channels would have you believe. That's the brilliant part of editing and scripting, is you can make it anything you want it to be. When it's live and unrehearsed and the unboxing is being done and the build is being done live, you get to see all the ugliness that most channels will cover up or find embarrassing. I don't find it embarrassing. It's part of my job. And if you want to do this for a living, you better get used to it. Because if everything you ever set out to fix as a tech, you knew the answer to right away, you would be very, very bored, depressed, and want to find another line of work that challenged you more. For that reason, I want to share with you the ups and the downs. And you can see, like the date example given on this board here, the only reason I knew that was from the extreme torture I went through to find that problem the first time it was ever presented to me. And I want the world to be aware of it, because I had never heard of this problem ever on any forum anywhere on the internet. That's a bold statement. The internet's a big place. Nobody, and I mean nobody, identified this issue until I did. And I'm not bragging, I'm upset. I'm angry because I wish I could have just typed in Google, blah, 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 and this thing would have said, check that. Well, now you can because of us, right? Because the community made it possible. A viewer said, I got a computer I just built, I followed one of your videos, I can't get Windows 10 to install. I don't know who this person is. I said, change the motherboard. Already did. Change the CPU. Already did. Change the RAM. Already did. Change power supply. Already did. Get a different flash drive, reinstall the Windows media, and start again. Already did. Change a storage device. I already did. I'm like, well, there's nothing left. He goes, I know. That's why I'm reaching out to you. What do I do? Would you look at it for me? I'm like, at this point, I'll pay you to let me look at it because it doesn't make any sense. You've literally changed every single component. What you're describing is not possible. I need to see this for myself. I will gladly look at it for you. As a result, I now have knowledge I didn't have before. We all do as a community. And we have shared that knowledge on the internet. So anybody who Google searches it can find it where before it didn't exist. And it would not have happened if not for the community. So we're all in this together, and it's an amazing feeling. And sometimes it can be embarrassing. Trying to find that problem live on camera, I overlooked that date I don't know how many times. And it wasn't until I was paying attention in the chat room that they kept shouting, look at the date, look at the date. I have no doubt sooner or later I would have gotten there, but with the help of the chat room, I got there faster. And you can't say, well, look how bright Carrie is. No, if Carrie was bright, he would have listened to the chat room earlier. I would have paid more attention. The problem is you got people in the chat room, suggesting I wave chicken bones over my head and chant. It's like, what? I mean, that's the effect of, ritualizing repairs with no logic behind it. Well, you should definitely flip it on and off 4 times. No, that's OCD. That has nothing to do with repair. So I get a lot of that in the chat, so I start ignoring it. These people don't know what I'm talking about. But not every once in a while, more and more often as this chat grows, there are people that are getting to the solution before I am. And it's fun. It's fun to have people share in the sleuthing and the diagnostic. That's the part of the job I enjoy. And sometimes people take the fun out of it. It's effectively giving me spoilers, right? They're like sitting in a movie going, you know, that guy did the murder. Oh, could I just do this on my own? So sometimes the people in the chat room can be a little too smart, but it's all good. It gets us there, and I very much like to include the chat and interact with you guys as much as possible, including the repairs. I've been corrected numerous times, and I've even changed my procedures because of people in the chat room saying, you know, wouldn't it be easier if you did it this way? And in some cases, they were absolutely right. You know, what are you going to do? And I'm better for it. And I'm teaching it that way now, too. So we're all a community here. I'm not your leader. Please don't assign me that role. I'm just the curator. That's all I am. A few more contributions, we'll move on. Thank you, Miguel, for the question and the contribution. Jason Mirabal has contributed $5 and says, Carrie, you're such a nice guy, a fun guy to watch. Not fun guy, but fun dude. Yeah, because fungi are mushrooms. I know that joke. And your videos I find very informative. Keep being you because you rock. Where were you when I was 16 years old? It's very kind of you. Thank you. Ian McLeod, let it go, Carrie. Ian McLeod contributes $2. Says, Slancha, Ian. Back at you, my friend. Do I have that scotch over there? I would blow the dust off of this and toast you, Ian. However, I shouldn't drink and stream. So, but let's just say I did. Slancha, thank you for contributing and being a part of this community. This worldwide community. Stephen Busiddle has contributed €5. He said, here's my donation to the channel. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Donald Strickland, a frequent contributor here, contributes $14.99. Winston Anglu with a $5 Canadian contribution. Winston's contributed many, many times. Thank you, Winston. Gary Tatum, another frequent contributor here, contributes $20 and said, I was here for the original Y3K live stream, and it's cool to see it again. This is the trick, Gary. You see, because I've seen it before, people seeing me for the first time go, man, that guy's smart. I've got them all fooled. See, they don't realize I struggled and fought to figure that out. And because I learned it the hard way, I won't soon forget it. You see, the School of Hard Knocks, it's a really good school, but the tuition can be kind of high. But it definitely is far better than just watching videos and reading forums. Well, the videos, whether you're watching YouTube, TikTok, or you know, if it's Instagram or I don't know, Likey, whatever the stuff is, there's no replacing experience. And while you might learn a valuable lesson from these videos, until you put it in practice, it's very easy to forget it. What was that thing I saw the other day? They said, I know they solved this problem. What was it? I promise you, after having gone through what I went through to figure out that Y3K problem, you can ask me about that 25 years from now, and if I'm still alive on this planet, I will tell you exactly how to fix it. That's not being smart. Let's not confuse that with being smart. That's just survival. And it only comes from experience. So I'm glad you're there to join me vicariously, but you really need to live it a little bit, man, because you can really appreciate the reward when it comes back up in the future and you solve it in an instant. People are like, oh, this guy's amazing. And you're like, well, I mean, thank you, but actually, that's just shut up and take the compliment, you know? the bottom line is, it's fascinating to me how I can struggle and struggle and struggle, and then I know the answer. And so when I see that same problem again, I know exactly what to do to fix it. And customers interpret that as amazing. You're just amazing. Like, no, I just had this experience. And if you don't have the experiences, if your experiences are limited to online virtual experiences only, you're missing a key component. So I want to encourage all of you, when you have that opportunity to conquer an obstacle, take it on. It's very rewarding. And the more challenging and the more difficult it is, the more rewarding it is when you conquer it. And you will, as long as you never give up. Never give up. Thank you, Gary. David Starbuck, another frequent and generous contributor here, has contributed $20. He goes, here's some dinero for the ammo fund. I wish I had the time to turn some money into smoke and noise too. I haven't fired my firearms in 2 years. I just haven't had time. I really need to take them apart and clean them, and I haven't had time for that either. But thank you, David. Thank you for your continued support and your generosity. Flamingo Lane contributes $5. He says, Carrie, I really enjoy your videos, but to be honest, I'm only here for the Jimmy and Lyle show. Well, they come on about 5 o'clock Pacific time. Gil Garcia with a $5 contribution. Thank you, Gil. King Spoonman with $4.99. Sometimes I want to ask you guys what these names mean to you, because I know that's got to... There's a reason. There's a story behind that name. King Spoonman wants to know, is a 9600K enough power for a long haul build using word processing, light video editing, and large spreadsheets? Yes. I don't even know what a 9600K is. I've never used one. Is there a 9600? I generally use the 9700. If there's a 96, if it starts with a 9, it's going to be fine. If it has the K, it's just 10% faster than the non-K version. And I would cool it with a Mugen 5. Make sure the case you use has enough depth for that, and you're going to be happy. Put in 32 gigs of RAM if you're using it for what you're describing, just to give a little bit buffer there. I think you'll be very, very happy. It will be a long haul build for sure, yes. Michael Dane contributes $5. Michael Dane has been a member of this community for some time. Like several other members of this community, he enjoys refurbishing older machines and giving them away to people in his community in need. He says, Carrie, I just gave away my 28th desktop computer system to a family that needed it for homeschooling. And yes, another Surface Pro 4 he has given to another veteran who was in need. The Surface Pro 4 is pretty pricey. It's very generous. And I love the spirit of contributing in your own local community. It is its own reward. I can tell you, I've never met Michael Dane. I don't even know what he looks like. But I can tell you this much psychologically. He felt so good from the appreciation and gratitude that he received after he gave away that first computer that he wants to feel that again. So he gave away a second one, and he got that euphoria, the feeling that cannot be described, but it's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's a chemical release in the brain, and it's very genuine, and it's very pure, and it's very addictive. And so long as you are getting these people that are showing gratitude for your sacrifice, and you look at it and you go, well, that really wasn't like the sacrifice. Michael probably feels like the sacrifice on his part was this much, but the gratitude he got back was this much or this much. It's a pretty good trade, right, Michael? In the meantime, it's also just a nice thing to do regardless. But the only way you get to 28 is because he is getting something from that you will never know until you do it. You can imagine it. Your imagination doesn't even come close. And the only way you will ever know what that feels like is to do it. It doesn't have to be a high-end system. You could have some old computer laying around collecting dust, get it working. There's somebody you know who could benefit from it, and you give it to them. And ideally, they are like, oh, thank you, this is amazing. I can't believe anybody would do something so nice for me. And you're going to go, oh, I know what Carrie was talking about now. You'll get it. So when I see that, I'm just lit up, because these are people who are enlightened. And I'm so proud that they're part of this community, and they inspire me. It makes me feel, Michael, that I'm not doing enough. Thanks a lot for making me look bad. You can make me look bad like that all you want. That's awesome. You're the man. Stuart Young, 4 pounds and 99 cent contribution, or 99 pence. Those British, they need to learn how to speak English. This is just a little contribution towards the channel, including the Quick Tips and Tech Vets podcast. I'm loving the content. Keep up the good work. Stuart, thank you so much. Make sure Stuart's blue in here. I want to make sure all the contributors are blue. Wayne Trexler with a $10 contribution. He says, this is from, but I think he means for, Catherine Anna Hauserman from my parts list she just made for me. Thank you so much, Catherine. I think Catherine has a donation link. Speaking of this community, I haven't mentioned it in a long time, but we have a member in the community who enjoys doing the research for individuals looking to build a computer, but they don't know what parts go together and what would be a good selection of parts for their budget and what they want to use the computer for. That's the part of it that overwhelms people. They like, okay, Carrie showed me how to do this, and it looks like I can do it, but I don't want necessarily what he built. I don't like the case, or I want to use it for a different reason. And it takes a good hour and a half conversation with somebody for me to give them a parts list that's going to be useful to them in their budget. Furthermore, many viewers are out of the country, and I don't know what's available in their country, and I don't know how the prices compare. But Catherine, who's in Colombia of all places, enjoys doing that for people solely in exchange for a thank you. It's work. It is research and work. I don't enjoy doing it. I got to get paid. If I'm not getting paid, I ain't doing it. Catherine is one of those rare individuals that finds enjoyment from it. I suggested to Catherine that she create a little PayPal link for a tip jar, not to request any money, but sometimes people reach out to me and say, would you give this to Catherine for me? She didn't ask for anything, but I want to give her, so I feel like I owe her, because she put the parts list together for me. I ordered the parts. I was scared because I spent a lot of money. I put all the parts together and everything works, and my expectations have been exceeded. I love my computer, and so now I want to show, now that I've done it, now I want to give something back to Catherine. Well, Catherine should have a link. There it is. She's in the chat room, and you can contribute to her directly, so I don't have to figure out who gave what when. It's very confusing. Catherine is an amazing contributor to this community, and I strongly suggest you reach out to her, even if you want a second opinion on your own build. She's not cruel. She won't make fun of you. And if she has some kind suggestions for improvement, then they will be referred to you that way. She doesn't even jokingly tease about your build. It is very sincere, and she does it out of the kindness of her heart, so please be kind to her. If it takes her a couple days to get back to you, which it rarely does, don't be mad at her for taking too long to respond to your free request for research, or you'll ruin it for all of us. So she's doing it for free. She has a tip jar where you can show appreciation in any way you want to. If you want to, you're not obligated to. And she's been doing this for years. She's got a track record, a proven track record. I'll tell you what, I screwed up. I had a build one time that Catherine put the parts list together. I was busy. I got 8 million things going on. And as I was putting it together, some of the parts didn't fit. And I know Catherine put the parts list together. So I'm live, I'm unscripted, and I'm frustrated. Catherine's never done this before. I can't believe Catherine would put a parts list together, but the parts don't fit. I didn't double check it because I trust Catherine. Boy, did I screw up. Turns out the customer made changes to Catherine's part list. It didn't tell either one of us. So Catherine's getting the brunt of my frustration when she did everything right, and I made a wrongful assumption that the customer actually bought the parts, that Catherine took the time to carefully research that everything was going to fit and be compatible. And I assumed that's what the customer ordered. But the customer changed a part, and the customer didn't tell anybody. And I didn't double check. I don't know. I got 8 million things going on. These are the parts? Okay, I'll put it together. I know Catherine put the list together. It's going to be fine. Oh boy, did I stick my foot in my mouth. So that won't happen again. Remember, I talked about the school of hard knocks. You can know if Catherine puts a parts list together for you, those parts are going to fit and those parts are going to be compatible. End of story. If you deviate from her parts list, that's on you. I will never forget that I did that to ensure that I never do that again. That was bad on my part. See, I'm a human being, despite the rumors. So you can reach out to Catherine in the chat. You can find her on Facebook. And she's one of the nicest people you will ever meet. I like to keep her that way. Don't break her. So thank you, Wayne. I'm glad to hear that you had a great experience. I hear that over and over and over. I've never, ever had anybody say, Catherine gave me a bad parts list. I've never heard a negative or a criticism from the parts list that Catherine offers to people. Never, ever, without exception. The one time was me, and that was my fault. I did not have all the information. Dr. Michael Ferguson, who watches us from Scotland, has contributed £5 and says, bravo for starting early. I may get to bed before 3 a.m. I don't go to bed before 3 a.m. What's wrong with that? Rock and Rob, again with a $2 contribution, says, excellent topic as usual, Carrie. Glenn's Music with a $10 Australian contribution says, if you'll sign up for an Amazon account in the UK, then your Amazon links will redirect so you can still get your commission, but UK residents get the local links. I can research this more if you want. I've already done it. I had created French and British Amazon accounts for the sole purpose of monetizing, the affiliate links. And you got to fill all this tax information in, and you got to have all these links, and it just became overwhelming administrative work. And the amount that it would bring in is, I don't know that it would justify the amount of labor I have to do to create and maintain those links. At some point, if I bring on somebody to do the administrative tasks of doing this content, the YouTube channel, there's a lot of administrative work, and it's piling up. It's getting busier and busier. And something like that may make more sense as the audience worldwide grows bigger in those areas. But right now, it's still relatively mostly US residents that watch me, with Canada and the UK second and third, I think. Then, of course, we've got Australia and then other areas of Europe. But we will get there. I think we're going to get there. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness. I've already looked into it. I already created the links, but it still took a little more administrative work. And I just haven't. The payback is pretty low. So I've been busy, basically, with things that pay better. But I think we will get there eventually. Jeremy Kramer with a $5 contribution says, Carrie, you work too hard. Take being a leader as a sense of education. Take me to the leader. Carrie Olsen. Yeah, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be last. I don't want to be first. I just want to be next. Mira Ora with a $2 contribution said, Jimmy and Lyle can be our leaders. Yeah, I don't know if I want to follow them to every tree and bush in the neighborhood. Jose and Veronica Lopez contributes $2. He says, I love your channel, Carrie. Thank you. Jose, Mirora, Jeremy, and Glenn's Music, and Rock and Rob. Terrell Cochran with a $2 contribution said the date issue, that was an interesting night, right? Never saw it coming. Even after 29 years of experience, never saw that before. And if Gigabyte did the job that everybody else like ASRock and MSI and ASUS do, would have never ever happened. That customer would have never called me. That customer would have never returned any of those parts. And the system would have worked exactly as I demonstrate on video. That customer bought an open box motherboard. That's the mistake that customer made. If they'd have bought brand new, the date would have never been altered. They saved $20 and probably spent 3 times that in shipping everything back. I don't know, maybe the shipping was free, but what an amazing experience that was. And I'm grateful to have had it. Oh, it was frustrating and it drove me crazy. So worth it. Ben Laird with a £2 contribution says, keep up the good tuition, Kerry. Right on, thank you, Ben. Frankie B, another generous contribution from Frankie B, $50. He says, hello everyone, I hope everyone is well. Here's a little something for all of us, for all of the something Kerry. You okay, Frankie? You didn't have a stroke while you were writing that, did you? Thank you for all the USSMF Kerry. I don't know what that means. Blackwatch with $4 Canadian. Scott Hallinan with $2 New Zealand says, I love your stream. You're the man, Kerry. And we all know, Michael Dane is the man. But you're the man too. Me? Not so much. Thank you. Paul G. Marr, that's a new name, contributes $5. Welcome, Paul. Paul's already a moderator, so I don't know why his name is new to me. You're blue. My bad, Paul. I got to pay more attention to you. You've been here before. Thank you. Yates Networks with $5 says, thanks so much for all you do, Kerry. Slowly growing. Wish I could say the same. David Smith contributes £5. He says, you're still the best. Enough said. David, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you. Francis Martin with $2 Canadian says, have another Coke. We're wonderful. You guys rock. I'm feeling, look, I got to build this system for Roy, man. I've spent the last half an hour just acknowledging all of your kindness and generosity and answering some questions. And I really do have to build this system for Roy. Whether I do it on camera or not depends on how much time we spend acknowledging how amazing you guys are. Peter Sprague just contributed $5. He says, thank you for getting me back up to speed, Kerry. After being disabled in 2012, I'm 61 years old and I'm getting back into computers and I've been using all of your info. That is awesome. I love it. Get off your butt and get back to work. I'm like that tough love drill sergeant, you know? I know what you're capable of. Are you? Let's go. Crank it up a notch. I love it. I love it. When I inspire people, they inspire me. It's weird how that works. Glenn's Music with 10 Australian dollars says, I skipped back to the beginning of the video and you were trying to find a word starting with R to describe the build, and I'm guessing it was robust, although it could have been rigid or reliable. I think it was robust. What I was trying to say is this consumer hardware that if you go on the forums and people are talking about handling it so carefully and wearing an anti-static, how important it is to wear an anti-static wrist strap and how delicate, it's not really all that delicate. It really isn't. It's consumer electronics. It is fairly robust. Thank you for that word. I think that is exactly the word I wanted. I could have used it 2 hours ago, but nonetheless, better late than never. And thanks for the contribution, Glenn. Eric Wilson's contributed $5. Thank you, Eric. All right, here's my thing. When I feel a win, when I have a success, it inspires me to have another, like it affects my attitude in a positive way. And so I see this challenge, right? And I don't know, can I conquer this challenge? I don't know. And I try it, and it turns out not only do I conquer it, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And so, knowing I have other work to do, because this challenge was so successful and relatively simple, now all I can think about is checking the other two motherboards. So I at least want to check one more. I got to check one more. I'm on fire right now, and I got to strike while the fire's hot. You know, I got to, what is it? Strike while the iron is hot, an old blacksmithing slogan. That's how old I am. And I feel really good. I feel really good about this. So I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to go grab another one. We're going to hook it up real quick. I already have everything out. So let's take another swing, see if we can hit another home run. I don't know. I'm going to swing all kinds of metaphors around here. Blacksmithing and baseball, whatever, man. Just trying to connect, you know, to different people. John Yasuda contributes $15. He says, it's fun to see the Y3K bug rear its ugly head again. Have some pizza and a Coke on me for dinner. One day, I hope to do that with you in person, John. Thank you so much. Richard Sweden contributes 50 Swedish krona. And thank you to Richard. He says, awesome work that you do. At the end of the day, all I'm doing is seeing something through. I never give up. I don't have all the answers. I will experiment. I know what's safe to do. I know what risk I'm taking. And I know what responsibilities I accept. And I know the buck stops with me. I will fix it no matter what. So if there's anything to gain from what I'm trying to teach, it's that you don't have to have a certain knowledge and you don't have to have a certain skill. What you need is to know that you can do it, to truly believe it's within you to do it, to take responsibility that if you screw it up, you're going to pay for it. But the benefit of paying for it is it's going to hurt you so much financially. You will not forget that lesson. And therefore, that lesson was a cheap lesson that you will never, ever repeat. You won't make that same mistake. It's worth it. It's worth it. And you will eventually figure it out. And then that chemically affects you to say, who's next? Bring it on. And I'm giving you an example of that live right now. I had no intention of testing any more than just one of these. I have 3. But that feeling is so intense, and I feel like, you know, the justification machine's going to work. I already got everything out. It'd be super fast for me just take another board, slap the stuff in it. So enough talking. Let's get to work. Flip power supply in the off position. Let's start taking this stuff off of here. I love taking stuff apart. It's putting it back together that's the hard part. But taking it apart, it don't matter what it is. Car engine, kitchen sink, I'll take anything apart. No problem. It's the putting it back together that gets you. But that's all right. That's it's part of the deal. It's part of the fun. This will be real quick. Watch. We're gonna take this fan back off of here. Just twist those little towers in the direction of the arrow, and then you can lift up on them. And because we didn't use any thermal compound, everything's nice and clean. There's no mess. And then we have to twist it to the opposite direction of the arrow, or it won't lock down. Opposite direction of the arrow. To lock it, move it in the direction of the arrow to unlock it. We'll take the CPU out. Now again, the socket is very delicate, so when you take the CPU out, do it cautiously. We'll flip it upside down, and I'm going to set the lid back down and immediately place the protective plastic cover over this delicate socket to avoid any accidental contact that could damage it. And then I'm going to take out the M.2 drive and we're ready to check the next board. Oh, I got to take the RAM out. So how many minutes does it take to take the RAM out? There's one module. There's the other one. How many minutes was that? M.2 drive, we're going to remove it. Don't lose that little tiny screw. We'll place the M.2 drive over there, and we're going to put the screw back so we know where it is the next time we need it. Don't tighten it too tight, but make sure it doesn't fall out. We're done with this motherboard. The BIOS is updated. We verified that it works. It can go back into its anti-static bag that it shipped in, which I had placed somewhere. I thought it was right here, and it isn't. What did I do with it? I know it's here somewhere. No, that's not it. I'll tell you what, let's just grab this other board. I'll just grab this one while I'm back here. Somehow when I was prepping to go live today, I took it out of the anti-static bag and I put it somewhere. So here's another box. It's got my address. They stuck the address on it. And I flip it around, I'm like advertising my address. So I'll just do this back here. And inside the box, you can see this has been opened before. Everything's wrinkled. You know, it doesn't have that nice new, what's the word? It's like you have a piece of paper that's been crumpled versus a brand new sheet of paper. You can tell it's been used. Inside, we've got a couple of SATA connectors. We've got the driver disk. The I/O shield has never been opened. I think that's really important to notice that if you're buying open box merchandise to help you determine, did anybody actually use this? I'm going to go crazy if I don't find that anti-static bag. Oh, it's on the floor. When did I ever start putting stuff on the floor? There's some viewers going, Carrie, you throw stuff on the floor every single video. I know, it was sarcasm. It was a joke. Oh, I need to remove, that's always my biggest fear, is I'm going to ship a customer a computer without removing the receiver for the Wi-Fi, the wireless keyboard and mouse, you know, that dongle. I did it once. And it sucked to not have it. And I had to order a new keyboard and mouse. And the person that I sent the computer to did mail the dongle back to me. But I couldn't wait for the mail to arrive. I had to keep working. So I had to buy another one. Long story short, I have 3 brand new in the box keyboards and mice, just in case that ever happens to me again. But because it happened, it's less likely because I experienced it. Experience. I didn't watch it happen on somebody's YouTube channel. That's not experience. That's entertainment. All right, so we're going to keep the I/O shield, the direction, you know, the owner's manual, the SATA. That's exactly as this was shipped to me, just like this. So I'm just keeping it together. There was no motherboard box. It's fine. Going back to this system over here, this has been opened. I can tell by looking at it that the cardboard's kind of been handled, for lack of a better word. These bags are always taped with the tape on the bottom, but this bag is taped with the tape on the top of the circuit board. So this motherboard has been removed from the original way it was packed. And the bag is wrinkled in ways that a new bag would not be. So we know that this has been used. So again, the question is, why was this returned? And if we look, we want to check to ensure that we have the 3 screws for the M.2 standoffs. Oh, I got rid of the wrong mouse. On Gigabyte boards, they're pre-installed. Asus and ASRock, they give you a little plastic bag. It's critical to have these little teeny tiny screws. They're very difficult to find. So we need 3 of them. One here, one here, one here. They're all there. Cover is over the socket. That looks good. Again, are we dealing with a date issue? I hope so. I'm going to open up the CPU socket, and we're going to take a look at these pins, which look perfect. These look perfect. And what I'm looking for is any lack of uniformity in the way the light is reflecting off of them. There are 1,151 little tiny delicate pins in there. And so to inspect each one manually would be extraordinarily tedious. So what I'm doing is I'm just tilting it a little bit up and down, left and right, seeing the way the light reflects off of it evenly. If a pin is bent, you should notice it significantly, as I showed you on the previous board, where there's a different reflection of light that should draw your eye. It may or may not be enough of a bend to cause an issue. It may or not be a pin that's actually used for anything. So don't freak out if it's got a bent pin. You won't know until you put your CPU in it how significant that is. And even then, until you put it through a whole bunch of benchmarks and testing, then you can have some confidence there, if it succeeds, that everything's fine. So just because you may have a pin that's slightly out of whack isn't necessarily the end of the game. It's reason enough to return the board if you don't want to chance it. However, where's the fun in that? Drop the CPU in there. That's done. Pop the RAM in. Put one here. RAM is in. Heatsink. This is a little difficult to do on this table because these pins have to come through the board. So if the board's laying flat, I kind of have to lift it a little bit to get the pin seated. And then we'll plug this fan header there. I'll plug the keyboard and mouse in here. Power switch. This time, how about if I plug it in the right place the first time? See how lessons through experience tend to stick a lot better? I mean, if that doesn't prove it, I don't know what does. I'm going to leave the M.2 drive out for now. I'm going to go ahead and, again, power supply is in the off position, so I can plug in the motherboard power connector. That's going to go right here. And CPU power up here in this corner, like so. And then we're going to plug in the HDMI cable to the back of your monitors at home. So here's the HDMI cable. We'll plug that in. You see, if you actually stop doing all the talking and you actually get some work done, it doesn't take very long at all. Not really telling you that. It's really for me. This is ready to test. Where's my flash drive with the BIOS? We might need this. It's the same BIOS for the same board. I'll set it there. What am I forgetting? Nothing. We're ready to test fire this bad boy. I'm going to flip the switch on. One of the things I'm looking for is I don't want the system to start right away. That's usually not a good sign. Some motherboards may do that. And that doesn't mean anything's wrong, but it's not the way it's supposed to work. That's what it's supposed to do, nothing. Until I hit this button, you can see the fan is spinning, everything's lit up and moving. Let's go to camera 2 and let's see what kind of output we're getting. That's weird. Oh, here we go. Let's hit Well, I don't have to hit delete. It has no choice. It will go in the BIOS. What's the date? Date is good on this one. No problem there. We're still a BIOS version behind. So what I will do is I'm going to turn the system off. Again, I'll just hit the power button. System is off. I'm going to plug the flash drive in. Any USB port, doesn't matter. I'm going to turn the system back on. And for Gigabyte, you can hit the end button on the keyboard, which on this keyboard I have to hold function and the right arrow, and that should take me directly. Boy, that's really disturbing what it's doing there. Well, it took me into the BIOS. What I was trying to show you, if I hit Control Alt Delete, let's do it again. If I hit function and the right arrow on this keyboard, it should take me right to QFlash, which it just did. Update BIOS, so I'm just going to hit Enter. It sees the BIOS. I'll use the mouse to point at it and double click. And then I push Enter. And then we wait as it updates the BIOS to the latest version. Now the video does look a little weird. That may be BIOS related. I don't know. It's something I'm noticing. It's a little different. This could be pointing us to a different problem, or it just maybe, I don't know, maybe nothing important. But it does slightly concern me that the video is kind of funky like that at power up. So once again, when the BIOS is completed, I'm going to put the M.2 drive back in it. It's the same board with the same drivers and the same configuration, and it should boot right into Windows. That's not a good test. The test is really in installing Windows. There's a whole process of file extraction and stuff that involves memory and CPU usage that you're simply not going to have as good of a test without a complete reinstall. So let's make sure the BIOS installs correctly first, which I'm anticipating is going to be just fine. The benefit of working on so many of the same systems is I don't have to go and get the BIOS every time. It's the same BIOS I already have. Not that that takes a long time, but you know, hey, if I can work a little less, I'm all for it. All right. And we're going to reboot. I'm all hands off during the entire procedure, completely hands off. And the system's going to restart itself. One of the reasons the system may have been returned may relate to a BIOS change the end user made, knowingly or unknowingly. This flipping back and forth between signal and no signal is very odd. I can't help but wonder if maybe my HDMI cable's not fully seated, or if there's something funky going on with the system. I don't know yet, but that's not the way the other system was working. Now this is interesting. It says boot failure detected. Now I've not seen this before. It says the system has experienced boot failure. That's very interesting. I'm going to load optimized defaults because it may be caused by BIOS settings. That weird blue staticky thing that you're seeing on your screen, that's not good. We may have a board here that has issues. We now have the latest BIOS version, as you can see, right up here. It says F15D. That is correct. We have the date and time close enough for government work. And everything else looks to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and load BIOS defaults one more time and save and exit. Enter, enter. The system should say you have no bootable device. Well, first let me turn it off and unplug the flash drive, because there may have been some time in the past where I put some boot files on this flash drive and they're not all there anymore, and then that could be causing that error. So let me take the flash drive out. We don't need it anymore. Let's turn it back on and let's take a look at what it looks like. Yeah, I still get that weird blue. The HDMI cable did go in just a tiny bit more. Maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. I'm going to shut it back off, and I'm going to hit the power switch so we cut all power to the board. And I'm going to drop that M.2 drive right back in it. We're going to take the M.2 drive mounting screw or securing screw out of the standoff. Like I said, we checked that to make sure that they were there before we started. The magnetism on this driver is weakening rapidly, so that screw is not staying connected like it should. Same M.2 drive we just previously used on the other build. I apologize, you're not getting a really good view here, but I'm just sliding that right back into its slot, and then we're going to secure that back down. At this point, when I turn it on now, it should boot into Windows. And here it goes. When you see it resized like that, that's configuring the graphics card. That's a good sign. Now, it's still identifying new hardware even though the drivers are the same. The hardware is different, and Windows is smart enough to go, hey, you know, that's a different serial number, it's a different hash. That's how it identifies one computer from another. If you had 10 identical systems all running Windows 10, and you've activated all Windows 10 on those 10 systems, or 12 or 15 or 20 or whatever, you'd think you could use the same product key. It doesn't work like that. In fact, you only need to enter the product key and activate it once on Windows 10. And then if you reinstall, if you do a nuke and pave on a system that was previously activated with Windows 10, and you completely wipe it, doing a nuke, and reinstall Windows 10, choose I don't have a product key, and reinstall whatever your product key was for. If it was for Windows 10 Home, then install Windows 10 Home. If it was for Windows 10 Pro, then select Windows 10 Pro. Without any product key, as I demonstrate, when you go online to go to Windows Updates, it'll say, I recognize that specific hardware, even though it's identical to other machines that you have. The hash codes of the serial numbers and the MAC address are all unique, and it will reassign the previously activated product key on that hardware without you having to do anything. When Microsoft's servers go, I recognize you've activated this before, and it will put the product key back for you and reactivate for you. After visiting Windows Update, it just works automatically from that point forever. If you change the motherboard, all bets are off. But that's how Windows 10 has worked for the last 5 years. You no longer have to write down your product key. From that point forward, unless your motherboard fails, Windows servers will recognize and reassign your product key, provided you have reinstalled the version of Windows your product key is for, Windows Home or Windows Pro. Now we know that works, so I'm going to just do a nice clean install. We're doing nuke and pave. So we'll shut it down. I can't see the screen at all. It's way too small. Give me just a minute. Choose shutdown. That just freaks me out. I mean, technically it's not hurting anything, but it's just very unusual behavior. And that's kind of a little warning that there may be something wrong with the board, which we just haven't been able to bring up to the surface. I'm going to go ahead and turn them. I'm going to take my Windows 10 installation media, and we're going to boot from that now. I'm going to hit F12 on the keyboard, and that's going to bring up the boot menu so I can tell it I want to boot from the UEFI SanDisk instead of the Samsung SSD. We want to boot off UEFI SanDisk, and then that will start the Windows 10 installation process that you've seen on this channel countless times before. And we're going to repeat the exact same process where we're going to hit next and install. And I'm going to wipe every partition and every bit of data. I select I do not have a product key. I want Windows 10 Pro because that's the product key I have that I will put in later. I have to accept the end user license agreement. You don't have a choice. Choose custom, always choose custom, and then select each partition that exists, knowing you are permanently destroying all the data on that mechanical or solid state storage device. You don't go, oops, I take it back. There's no taking it back, it's gone. Now it's just like it was when it was new, and I hit next as I would on any other new build, and it will repartition, reformat, and install Windows 10, just like it always has on every build ever. That's the only difference between using a used drive and a new drive on a clean install. So while we wait, a few more shouts out. How about that? Let's do that. OG Gaming contributes $10. Thank you, OG. And Stephen Clark with a £5 contribution said, here's a little something for the channel. Right on. Thank you. Thank all of you. What am I missing? What's going on in the chat room? The lights underneath the motherboard make it look like it's on fire. Let's hope not. You can actually turn these lights on and off. This is the audio LED. It's supposed to help reduce noise interference. In the BIOS, there's an option if you want those lights off, if they bother you. Because these boards all go into a Corsair 200R that has no case window, you can kind of see the glow through the little holes in the side of the panel, but nobody's ever said anything to me about it. You'll see Windows installs relatively quickly, no differently than it did before. It's all the same parts. Even the motherboard's the same make and model, so we should expect exactly the same performance and nothing less. Again, even if there's a pin that I didn't see that may be bent in the socket, it may not be a game ender. It may have absolutely no impact on the system whatsoever, or it could have severe impact. That's what we do through testing. When you buy something used off of Amazon specifically, again, you don't know why it was returned. And some problems are very obvious, and you hopefully will have one that's obvious if you have one. Other problems are a bit more pervasive, where only under certain circumstances where they rear their ugly heads. If I were going to sell the system to a customer, I would make a note that it was a used board, so that if the customer did call with a problem, probably the very first thing I would do is replace the board and say that's that. Because no matter how much I test it, there's no better test than giving it to the customer. And if the customer uses it, and let's just say the board has a problem, but it's a problem that never crops up because of the way that it's being used, then technically, well, it has a problem as far as the customer is concerned. It doesn't. So if you've given a customer a good system that does everything the customer needs it to do, and you're warranting it, you have as much control over that as you do on a new one. The only difference is if there's a problem, where I would start. And I would start with replacing the board. And then I would pretty much call that board bad. I wouldn't need to test it anymore. But I wouldn't do it to a customer unknowingly. I wouldn't sell a customer a used part. The customer would get full disclosure. I would say, look, I've got a used part here, which I believe functions just fine, And the benefit to you is I will sell it to you at a discount. I will warranty it the same. If you would prefer a new board, I have no problem with that either. It's the same amount of work for me either way. I'm not trying to deceive anybody or add $20, to my profit margin by manipulating my inventory. That, first of all, is illegal, but secondly, it's just not a good business practice. There are many customers out there that will be very grateful to have the opportunity to save some money, knowing that it will potentially have a little more risk, but that you will take care of them regardless. And for my customers overall, that's enough. Knowing that I'm going to be there for them and they can save a little money, if I think it's good enough, then generally what I often hear is if it's good enough for me, it's probably going to be good enough for them. But just in case I'm wrong, they know I'm going to take care of them. They don't have any doubt. So that would be the circumstance. Otherwise, it's a system I would give to a friend. I'd say, here, you can have this. And by the way, it's a used board. If it has any problems, let me know. But I don't think it does. But it's free, so enjoy that. Or I use it around the office. I use it for work. Or I use it to do a task. No matter what, it's going to end up well. If the system has a problem, if the board itself has a problem, I want to find out as soon as possible so I can return it back to Amazon. Much like myself, Amazon stands behind what they sell, and they will give me my money back on it. But I have to do that within a reasonable period of time of receiving it. If I let it sit on a shelf for 3 months before I get to it, well, I've passed my return period. So remember, when you buy products, the warranty starts the day you buy the product, not the date you took it out of the box. I can't count the number of times customers have said things like, well, yeah, I had it a year, but it's been in a box the whole time. I only just now took it out. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, your warranty started the day you bought it, not the day you took it out of the box. You shouldn't have bought it until you were ready to take it out of the box. It's not my fault. And it's not me saying that. That's the people I'm buying from. I can't warranty it if the company isn't going to warranty it back to me. I'm going to go out of business. So I'm not doing anything that it's not a choice. In other words, I'm extending the manufacturer's warranty, and I'm just the middleman. And all manufacturers' warranty are the same. If it's a TV, and if you had the TV sitting in your garage for a year and you took it out of the box and the screen's cracked, it's too late to take it back to Best Buy. Try that. Let me know how it works out for you. So don't buy stuff that is electronic and could have problems and let it sit beyond its return period. Make a few minutes if it's a TV, at least inspect the screen and make sure it's not cracked. Take a minute to plug it in, make sure a picture comes on, and then you can get to it later. Don't let it sit and find out the screen is cracked after your return period. That's true of all retailers. Windows installed, everything looks good. We're going to shut it down. We'll restart it. Let's see what our boot time is. Here we go. Yep, same as the other one. I am seeing a little, the video issue. So here's the key with the video issue. That weird video stuff that I'm seeing may not be an issue if it's strictly video. If, for example, the system I'm building for Roy is going to have a GTX 1660. So if we were to put a discrete graphics card in this motherboard, then that video issue would never ever be known. We'd never see it. I don't know what that video issue leads to. Does it lead to any negative reliability experience in operating the computer with the integrated graphics? We know it's not the chip. We know that the CPU with the integrated graphics is functioning perfectly. The only part we changed is the board. And we know we're getting these weird effects when it starts, which is unusual, but it may not actually have any impact on the machine's performance of any operation, or it might. And if it's solely related to the internal graphics with something on the board, then maybe putting a discrete graphics card in it, which somebody might do anyway, I mean, there are people who buy these chips with integrated graphics and never, ever use the integrated graphics. Therefore, they would never know anything is wrong, and they would never have any downtime or any issues, potentially. Not the way I like to do business. However, under the right circumstances, for the right customer and the right price, giving full disclosure so the customer is fully aware of what they're buying, this may be a very workable solution for somebody, including for myself. Like if I wanted to play with it, as an office computer and just use it, that's the best test. Give it to somebody to actually use it and see if they have any complaints. And if so, address them. If not, how is that any different from a new machine? Other than it costs the customer less money, and there may be a little anxiety at the beginning, but then anxiety will slowly go away if the machine works without any problem. So lots of different variables and different ways to attack this, depending on, again, what your expectations are, what you have to spend, and what you're willing to accept. It varies from person to person. There's no right or wrong answer here. In general, it's not the way I like to do business because there's not enough in it for me to take that risk to potentially have that situation. For 20 bucks, I think these boards were $20 or $30 off. They're $100 new. So they're 60 bucks, 70 bucks. I mean, there's not enough money in it to take that risk. So this particular board, I have a little reservation. I am a little concerned, and I'm going to set it aside because of that. And I will test it more thoroughly when I have time. But it passes all the main tests. It does everything it's supposed to do. It's just got that weird startup issue and shutdown issue with the signal, no signal, signal, no signal, that adding a graphics card would resolve. If that's really even a problem to be worried about, I don't know. And again, when you buy new, that would be completely unacceptable. That board would go back if it was new. Knowing that it's used, there's a little more leeway for what's acceptable. And at the end of the day, it's got to do with in this case, it's got to do what I need it to do. And if it has a little funkiness in the beginning, but it doesn't ultimately affect its performance or its reliability, I'm okay with that. Doesn't bother me one bit. Because I leave the machine on. I'll never see it again. Maybe when it reboots after Windows updates, I'll see it for a second. But if that's it, I'm fine with it. My customer may not be, but I am, right? At the end of the day, you always take care of your customer, no matter what you have to do to make it right in order to have a sustainable business. That means you give them all the information, you give them a good deal, and you support them no matter what. And some customers are not the right customer for this scenario, and others are ideal. And again, if I was building a system to give away, as long as this passed all my benchmarks and testing, I think it'd be fine. And it would save a little money, and that means I could give away a little more, right? Or if I wanted it around the office, my own personal use, or for a friend, a family member, save a little money, get a little bit more. And if for any reason it came back with a problem, the first thing I would do is replace the motherboard. The board has a warranty through Gigabyte, so I can still keep my bargain motherboard, which I got at a discounted price, create an RMA ticket with Gigabyte, explain the problem, mail it off. It's like 20, 25 bucks to mail it off. And in 2 weeks, Gigabyte will send me a new replacement board, which will guaranteed not have any problems. Or I have about 30 days. I can send it back to Amazon for a full refund if I don't want to play around with it. Choice is mine. But right now, I feel like it works. I'm okay with it. I'm going to keep it. So I have a contingency to RMA it in the future if need be. And ideally, I will, if the video stuff bothers me, I'll just throw a discrete graphics card in it and see if that goes away. Problem solved. Next. Keep moving, right? Next problem, move on. Adjust your expectations accordingly. I want to emphasize, if this was a brand new board, it would be going back. It's only acceptable because it's used and I paid less. So I've adjusted my expectations in accordance but it still has a warranty. It can still be RMA'd no differently than a brand new board, if that's what I want to do. It can be returned back to Amazon where I bought it, just like a brand new board. So the only difference right now is that I've paid less. And I have that weird funky video artifacting at startup. And I just don't know if that's an issue or not. Almost dinner time for the boys here. Let's get this M.2 drive out and we will put this motherboard back. You always please note the way I hold these electronic parts because you don't see me wear an anti-static wrist strap. If I were to have a static discharge, it would have no place to go. Somebody, I was explaining how the I/O shields have grounding straps, and there's a viewer going, "What's he talking about? That I/O shield isn't grounded to anything. What's it grounded to?" I don't know, maybe the fact that the I/O shield is metal and you're connecting the metal and touching it to the metal on the case. Last I checked, that's how you make a circuit. That's the process, metal to metal. So yes, it's grounded to the case. The case itself is earth grounded through the power supply, which is secured to the case with metal screws. Everything metal connected to metal all connects to metal. And you can take a continuity meter and you can measure the continuity from the back of the power supply to the back of the I/O shield, and you should be able to see electricity is flowing through there, and it'll all be grounded, or it should be grounded. And it's frightening to me sometimes how people on the internet like to boast about their ignorance. What's this guy talking about? It's not grounded. What's it grounded to? Oh, I don't know. Maybe go to school before accusing me because you don't understand basic electronics. But it is the internet. And so that comment got deleted. But it just was like, really? After all these years, all these videos, you really want to go down that road? All right. Thanks for your comment. I appreciate it. It changes nothing. All right, you know what? I got one more board to test. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's just do it. Let's be done with it. Be done with it already. All right, this one, did they put an address label? Oh, see, now this had an address label from somebody else who had it. When something comes from Amazon's warehouse, and this was confusing to me because I have several of these boards, and I'm like, how can I tell the new ones from the used ones? If it comes from Amazon's warehouse, it will have an Amazon warehouse sticker on it. You'll know immediately. When Roy ordered his parts and the Wi-Fi card came in, the Wi-Fi card has an Amazon warehouse sticker. That tells me this card was returned, and I emailed Roy and said, did you mean to order that, as a used part, or was that a mistake? And he said, oh, that was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. Should we return it? I said, well, it's your part. You can return it if you want to return it. However, it's probably just fine. Based on my experience with Amazon's buying parts from the Amazon warehouse, so far we've had, as you witnessed, very, very good luck. Parts have been great. The worst thing is this board here, because I didn't get a motherboard box, but I mean, so what? So he left it to my discretion. I said, yeah, it's probably fine. If not, I mean, if we have to send it back, we're going to delay your build. If we go with it, it's probably fine. If it's not fine, then your build will get delayed, but at least it'll have to be versus, doing it when we don't have to. We'll find out. So this is the last one from Amazon Warehouse. All the other ones I've got are new. You'll see it's put back exactly the way it's sold. The SATA cable, they're in a little holder. Underneath, we've got the I/O shield, which has never been opened. I like that. I like it. It's a good start. Okay, last one. Because I just got to know. I'm two for 3 right now. I want to go 3 for 3. This one, this anti-static bag, has been folded properly. I can feel tape residue, so it has been opened before, and I can see wrinkles on the bag that wouldn't be there if it was a brand new product. So clearly this has been removed from the bag, but whoever put it back correctly. Not that it matters, but it does kind of show a level of care, which didn't exist on the other one. Okay, do we have all 3 screws? One there, yep. One there, yep. One there, yep. Covers in place, that's it. Got everything we need? Slap it together. 3rd time's a charm. Here we go. Drop the CPU in first. Let's take a look at that socket. One more time. Here's our socket. And that socket looks absolutely perfect. Perfect. We'll drop the CPU in. Very good. Lock it down. Make sure this is ready to be locked down. So we want to make sure these little towers, there's a little arrow indicator on them. And you turn it in the direction of the arrow when you want to remove the heatsink. Make sure the arrow is the opposite of where it's pointing when you want it to lock down. It comes out of the box with the arrows pointing, the towers are pointing away. I've had first-time builders think they had to turn that in the direction of the arrow in order to seat it. No, you turn it in the direction of the arrow to remove it. Once it's removed, you need to turn it back the quarter turn so that it looks like this. And then when you push it down, next time it'll lock. Okay, RAM, CPU cooler's in place, power switch. Boy, I wish I could see. I can't tell which set of pins I'm on. The light's reflecting and it's very small, and I don't know why I didn't have this problem with the other board, but these 52-year-old eyes are starting to, they're just not as flexible as they used to be. The muscle in the iris that controls the focus, much like other muscles in the body, as you get older, things like tying your shoes, which you did throughout your whole young life without even so much as a second thought, suddenly slip-ons are a lot more appealing, but that's the price you pay for not dying. All right, so power. Let's give it some power. That's good. I'm not wearing slip-ons. It'll be a cold day in hell. Sorry, I cracked myself up because it's true. All right, and did I forget? Look what I did. Look what I did. You know what I did? Do you guys know what I did? There it is. Flappity contributes 2 pounds. He says the mouse dongle is in the other motherboard. Yes, I just now, it occurred to me, and then I looked at the chat, and you guys have been warning me, and I wasn't paying attention. Thank you. What's worse is when you rebox, like, you know, take a tower, take a 200R, put the panel, you know, do the cable management, put the panels on it, get it back in the plastic bag, put the styrofoam on it, put it in the box, tape the box, and then go, where's my dongle? Cut the tape, remove the tower, remove the plastic, take the dongle out, put it all back in again. That never ever happens to me more than twice a week. All right, so with this all cleared out of the way, we've got our dongle for the keyboard and mouse, or RAM, CPU, cooler, leaving the M.2 drive out just like before. HDMI cable using integrated graphics built into the CPU will plug right into the HDMI port. Make sure your HDMI cables are all the way in. Sometimes some people are just too gentle with their cables, and I'm not suggesting you brute force it, but just kind of wiggle and push in on it, make sure it doesn't go in any further. It should sort of bottom out, and you should be able to feel it. I have numerous times been too gentle with the cables, and I don't have a complete connection, and it can lead to a misdiagnosis of a problem with the system. Always check the easy things first. With that, we should be able to power this on. I want to have the BIOS flash drive ready. We'll put it there. We can now flip the switch on the power supply. Do all that with the switch off or with the power supply unplugged, strictly for safety reasons. No matter what anybody tells you, if you don't have power connected, you cannot be electrocuted. Well, the chance of electrocution, I don't care. I don't care what the chances are. The chances are absolutely zero if you pull the plug. And those are odds I can accept better. Zero. Other ways, it's a little risky. If it's up to me, I'm going to tell you do it safe. Even if that safety is a bit over the top, I'm okay with that. Let's see if it powers up. Okay, fan is spinning, lights are lit up. Let's go to camera 2 input. Gotta use the right mouse. We'll see what happens here. That's a good system, a good startup. No weird video stuff happening. BIOS version and date. 2020 is good. Ooh, it's an older, is that F11 or is that F14? I don't even know. Where's my glasses? F14. So we're just one version behind. So let me go ahead and shut this off. All right, you with me? You know what I'm about to do, don't you? They say the best way of learning is through repetition, so we're going to do this for a third time. Tell me what I'm about to do. I got a flash drive. That's correct. You're going to plug it in. That's right. You're going to turn the system back on, and you're going to hold. You're going to hit the end key on the keyboard, or you're going to go on the BIOS. You're right, yeah. Either way. This keyboard, because it doesn't have the 10 key, it doesn't have the additional functions of a bigger keyboard. It's got this little blue function button, and any key that has blue written on it has a secondary function that works when the function key is pressed. So if I hold down function, and this right arrow, you see it says end, then that becomes the end button on this particular keyboard. You may have a dedicated button that says end on a full-size keyboard. So what I'll do is turn the machine back on. We're going to go back to camera 2. If I can do this quick enough and hit function right arrow. I did it. And now I'll hit enter. There's our BIOS. I'll use the mouse to select it with a double click. And I hit enter again, and it updates, and I keep my hands off of the system. It will reboot itself automatically when it's done, and it will go back into the BIOS where we can verify we have the latest version. We will reset to BIOS defaults, and we will put the M.2 drive back in, and we will boot to Windows 10 again. We will then boot to the Windows 10 media. We will then delete the partitions, and we will then reinstall Windows 10 just like we did twice before, and make sure that the system loads Windows 10 without any blue screen or crashing. And that's a good indicator that we have a good board, at least worthy of further inspection, and does not need to immediately be boxed up and returned for a refund. So we're not guaranteeing that there's anything wrong or not wrong with the system, but we're verifying that it's likely the system is, or the motherboard that we bought used is likely going to be fine, but we can't really know for sure without further testing. But if it can at least install Windows 10 or boot, well, we can send it back without wasting any more time. But I am tickled that the board that didn't have the box had that 30/20 date or whatever that was. Love it. Out of the 3 boards, that was the only one that had that problem. So I have no idea why these other 2 boards have been returned. But bear in mind, the board that had the bad date also had the opened I/O shield. This board, the I/O shield, is still unopened in its original package. The system is rebooting itself. I'm not touching anything. This is all happening automatically. Patience is required. We're back to this same error we saw before on the previous board, but not on the board before that, which is kind of interesting to me. We'll load the optimized defaults. That's fine. That suggests to me that the previous owner had changed something in the BIOS, which may be the reason why they ended up returning the board. Just to be safe, I'm going to load the optimized defaults. And I want to go back here to System and make sure we're on F15D. We are. I should have done that first, but all right, we'll go back over here to Save and Exit. Choose Save and Exit. Press Enter and press Enter. And now it should just have no bootable device. And oh, you know what? I have left the flash drive for the BIOS plugged in, and it may be trying to boot from that still. That's probably why I might be getting that error. Yeah, okay, so it's booting into the BIOS like it should. Let me go ahead and turn this back off. Let's get you back over to camera 1 so you can watch me. We're going to turn this back off, like so. Have I ever flashed so many BIOSes in my life in one day? That's removed. Let's put the M.2 drive in. Let me hit the switch to turn power off at the power supply. And let's put that M.2 drive back in. I say back in as though it's been in this before, but you know what I mean. Oops. I apologize that you don't have a great angle here. Blame Mitch. Normally, in many builds, I have a good friend named Mitch who comes over. He's a tall guy, and he gets a good camera angle from above, and he can move around with the camera while I'm working and give you guys great camera shots. Other times, I make Mitch do the work, and then I film him. But with just me, I'm sorry, you're going to have to sort of bear with me that I'm doing some little detail work here that I can't move the camera and do at the same time. But all I'm doing is putting the M.2 drive in a slot. It's not really that interesting of a video. Of course, neither is this, but you know, we're all here. All right, let's turn it back on. And let's go back to camera 2. Now this should, again, boot into Windows 10. There's Mitch. He says, not this Mitch. Sorry, Mitch. I meant to be talking behind your back. I didn't know you were there, man. Mitch says, hey, that's me. Toto rocks. Look, Toto, I like the band Toto. They're a good band. But Rosanna, 99, I wouldn't call those rock. Toto has one rock song. It's called Hold the Line. The rest are like easy listening. There's an episode of a show called Still Standing that used to be on in the 90s. And the kids were down in the basement, I don't know, getting in trouble. And the father says, what were you kids doing down there? And they're like, oh, we were listening to your Pink Floyd records. Oh, you were? And the kid says, yeah, they rock. He goes, go to your room, you're punished. He goes, you weren't listening to my Pink Floyd records. Because there's one thing Pink Floyd doesn't do, and they don't rock. Go to your room for lying to me. Crack me up. That's what it just remembered. Toto rocks. They have one song that rocks. The other songs are very mellow. Africa, Rosanna, Joanna, 99, Smooth Yacht Rock, Steely Dan. Yeah, it's good. It's not rock. Mitch is going to get me for that. I know he will. All right. Don't talk about the music I like. All right. So we see Windows 10 is loaded up fine, and we're going to go through the same process. We'll shut down here. And I'll grab my Windows 10 installation media. Once again, that's going to plug into the USB port, any blue USB port, doesn't matter where. And we'll turn it back on, and we're going to do the F12 button on the keyboard. This keyboard, we'll hit F12, and that will get us to the boot menu to force the boot to the, I didn't do it in time, to boot to the flash drive. So what I can do, there's a couple different ways you can get around this. I'm just going to hit shut down. And then once it powers off, okay, I'm going to turn it back on, and immediately I'm going to start pressing F12 right now. Okay, and now I will select UEFI SanDisk, and we should boot to the Windows 10 installation media. This board seems just fine. I have no concerns or no reservations with either the first board or the third one. The second one I'm a little concerned about, but not much. I think it's probably okay. And we're off to a reset drive. Once again, being repartitioned, reformatted, and Windows 10 is being installed. I think. Is it going to move past this point? What's it doing right now? There it goes. It does have to create those partitions, so it does take a minute, and that was what that delay was for. At least for one of the partitions. I don't know the order in which it does it, but it definitely, Windows definitely makes those partitions first. It has to. Getting back to me, I can put myself here in a corner so we can kind of do both at the same time. Chevy Arthur says he's a Kerry Holzman fanboy. Chevy Arthur made 2 contributions for Amazon gift cards yesterday. Anyway, thank you, Chevy, for being a fan and for being a wonderful, supportive, and contributing member of the community. I appreciate you. I have to look and see what Mitch had to say. I'll tell everybody you listen to Justin Bieber and you say that's rock. It's kind of rock. Marty Uell with $5 contribution. Hey, Marty, good to see you. There's a song on the charts right now called WAP, W-A-P, by Cardi B. If you want to watch that video, it'd be kind of interesting to hear what you have to say about it. It received, I don't know, 40 million views in the first 2 days or something. And it's interesting to me only because Cardi B is already successful and doesn't have to do what she did. It is not a family-friendly song. And yet that is climbing. I don't know that it's climbing up the charts. I didn't even know that they could play it on the radio. It's definitely not rock, but I don't mind it. Yeah, I'm already seeing puke emojis. Hey man, look, I like to stay on top of cultural things and know what people are talking about. And, it didn't cost me anything to watch it. I might have watched it twice, but that's only because I couldn't believe it the first time. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was from an unknown artist trying to make a name, but for an artist that already has a name to do that, it's weird. It's just having a hard time wrapping my brain around that value. I look at me, I'm a piece of meat. It's almost like she insists that you see her as a piece of meat, and she's proud of it. It's very strange. Very strange. Not bad, not good. Strange. Very strange. Might watch it again. It's definitely not my kind of music, but I can't say I've seen anything quite like it. Hey, Mitch, did you watch that video? It's nothing at all like Toto. There's a song on the radio called Roses that's on the charts. And I can't decide if I like it or not, so I've listened to it about 30 times. I'm not quite sure if I like it. I have to listen to it a few more times. It's called Roses. I can never remember who does it. The radio's playing the heck out of it. Is it St. John? Saint J-H-N? The Imenbeck remix? I don't even know how you say these words. Of course, it's 11 months old and I'm just now hearing it, but that's pretty early for me. It usually takes a few years after a song's been a hit, and I'm like, wow, you ever heard of this band? Yeah, they broke up 10 years ago. Oh, it's the first I heard them. They're pretty good. St. John is a song called Roses, and it's a pop song. So, apparently it's got Juice WRLD in it. I don't know. The guy died, right? Or drug overdose or something. And then what's the other one? What's the other one I'm listening to? Oh, Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa has a song called Break My Heart, which I really like a lot. I really like that song a lot. It's very poppy, it's very bubblegum, it's very formulaic, but you know what? They did the formula right. I like it. Thing about listening to 80s music is they're not making any new 80s music. So after a while, I have to have something different. I love Duran Duran and Hall & Oates and Huey Lewis and Depeche Mode, and I can take the Go-Go's and I can take the Bangles and I can, take a bit of the Reflex and the Fix. The Fix, I can take a lot of the Fix and the Romantics and Queen, of course, Queen and Tommy Two Tone and Jay Giles Band. But the problem is, over and over and over and over and over, year after year after year, got to have a little something something to mix up in there. And so lately, those songs have been like La Matre, which is like the two I just, WAP. WAP is strictly for the video, the uncensored adult version of the video, because it's wrong. And then what was the other most recent? There's been a few songs by the Jonas Brothers. Surprisingly, I can't believe I like them, but I do. Whether it's Cake by the Ocean or Sucker, or they're just, everything they're doing now is really, really good. Either that or I've lowered my standards. I'm not sure which one it is, but I'm enjoying it. I can't believe the words are coming out of my mouth. You like the Jonas Brothers? Yeah, well, they're old now. They're more like the Jonas Uncles, or you know what I mean? Like, they're not the boy band. They're more of a man band, and they've matured, and I didn't like them when they were kids, but now it doesn't matter. All right, it booted. Everything's good. We have a good board, and let's just shut it down. Very happy with this board. Very, very happy. I keep pushing the wrong button because my screen is this big, and I'm guessing where the button is. I can see the words, but I can't make them out. I got to go to the second one from the top. That's how I have to go full screen. There's our boot time anyway. It's the same. Top one. Whew, this is a day. WAP equals not good. That's from John Williams. I'll tell you why that strikes me as funny. When I hear the name John Williams, I think of the conductor who's done, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. John Williams is probably the Beethoven, the Mozart of our time that we're living in now. And I predict 500 years from now, when students are learning about orchestral conduction, the movements and the design of orchestras in the music design, that they will listen to Beethoven, they will listen to Bach and Tchaikovsky and all those classics. And I think John Williams will be right in there with those names. And maybe even Danny Elfman, who is an amazing conductor and arranger. That's the word I wanted, the arrangements. Danny Elfman's the most shocking of them all. Danny Elfman is this punk, red-haired lead singer of the band Oingo Boingo, singing Dead Man's Party. They sang the song Weird Science for the 1980s movie that John Hughes did called Weird Science. And if you see the videos for Oingo Boingo in the 80s and you see this lead singer, he looks like a thug, very intimidating. But today, he works a lot with Tim Burton and does all the music in the Tim Burton movies. He's done the Simpsons theme, and when the Simpsons change the subject matter of the episodes, oftentimes the theme will change to match that at the end credits, and it's the same song but completely rearranged, and Danny Elfman does all that. His credits in orchestral arrangement are longer than I can name, coming from the lead singer of a punk band into professional orchestral arrangements in conducting. What an incredible thing to watch that growth. It's sort of like if you watch a video by Queen, take I Want to Break Free, watch the video I Want to Break Free, or watch the video for a crazy little thing called Love, and then watch Freddie mature and sing opera with Montserrat Cabal in the song Barcelona, and tell me that doesn't give you goosebumps to know that's the same guy who was wearing leather and strutting around, who's now in a full tuxedo singing an orchestral song using the power of his voice. It is very moving, and it's amazing to see that growth in an individual and that diversity, and it's so much more powerful knowing where he came from to where he, towards the end, where he got. If you've never seen the video for Barcelona, which was the theme song to the 1996 Olympics or something like that, he had died before that happened, but they pre-recorded it. And what a testament to the talents of that man. And the same with Danny Elfman. Like John Williams, make no bones about it. He is a conductor and an arranger. That's what he does. He doesn't have any pop songs in the top 40, and he isn't going to. He didn't grow from one genre into another. He has always been into arrangements and orchestral music. And he's very, very good at it. So when I see somebody in the chat named John Williams saying WAP, I can picture this very well-refined gentleman who does his orchestral arrangements listening to Cardi B and just imagining what his reaction would be to that. The way I amuse myself. All right, this is off. It is now. Everything's good. I'm going to focus on that second board in the future for further testing. Like I said, the first board I tested with the wrong date, it's fine. The third board we just tested, it's fine. IO Shield's not even been opened. We're good. Good savings. I bought up every HD3 they had. Don't worry, it was only 6. There'll be more in stock. Don't get mad at me. I'm not buying 100 of them. Trust me, when Amazon gets them in stock, they're probably getting 50 to 100 of them. So you'll be seeing a bunch of builds coming up with the 9700K, the Mugen 5, and then whatever for RAM and solid state drive, depending on the customer's need, because it's just a rock solid system. In fact, my sister's got a quick tips video ready to be released that is just a short sort of, hey, here's the configuration I'm asked to build more often than not. You're gonna get sick of this, but it's just temporary. I do have some other builds. The technology moves pretty quick, so if you don't strike while the iron's hot, if you don't react and make a purchase within the next couple of months, all this is going to change. I'll probably be focusing more on socket 1200 boards, 10th generation 10 series Intel chips, and my recommendations will change accordingly. Also with the new Ryzen, whatever the next series is going to be, because the 4000 is only for integrated system builders like Dell and HP, we can't buy them. So whatever the next one is, let's hope we have a more stable platform with compatibility with RAM and BIOS issues, I hope. Each generation, AMD is getting better. AMD chips are also depreciating very rapidly, so I would advise you to hold off buying the latest and greatest AMD, because if you wait as little as 6 to 8 weeks after the chip is released, it's normally reduced in price by about $30, upwards to $50 within 60 to 90 days of release. It seems to be that way. You can look back through the pricing history. You go to websites like Camel, and take a look at the price ranges of whatever AMD chip, any AMD chip. Look what initial price it had, and look how rapidly it dropped in value. So if you are a smart buyer, wait till the value goes down a bit, because if you're first, not only do you have the teething issues of the new tech, potentially, but then you're also going to have a system that's going to drop in value by $30 to $50 in just a few weeks after you built it. And if you got to have it, you got to have it. But I mean, just set your expectations accordingly. Now, the Intel chips have also been going down in price. The 9700K was at $350, then it went to $325. Now it's at $320, which I think is a steal. I think that's a bargain all day long. And the way it's going, it should be at $315 next week if it keeps doing what it's doing. And I'm okay with it. Just know that if you buy 10 of them, because hey, it's a good price, and it goes down $15, you just lost $150 by stocking up, which you probably wouldn't do because you're not a business owner like I am, probably, I'm guessing. And still, the Mugen 5s are still in stock, $48.99 at Amazon. I know they were out of stock for a while. They're back in stock if you want to get one. The price never goes up or down. Well, The price does go up if it's from a third-party seller because they'll just milk you for whatever they can get. But when you buy from Amazon, you're actually getting directly from Scythe. It's $48.99. I'm still trying to work with Scythe to make an arrangement. I'd like to unveil the black edition of the Mugen 5 here on the channel. As far as I know, it's been discussed, but it has not yet been released in the United States to the best of my knowledge. I would love to unveil it here exclusively. We'll see. I don't know. Working on it. I'm working on some other stuff behind the scenes to get discounts, steep discounts for you guys. These people, they say they want to sponsor me, and I'm like, well, if you're going to sponsor me, you got to do something for my viewers. You got to do something for them you don't do for anybody else. There's lots of other YouTube channels these companies sponsor, and I don't want to have the same deal all the other YouTube channels have. It's got to be something unique for my viewers, and if you're not willing to do it, I'm not interested. So that's where we're at. And if the company wants to play ball, we'll play ball. If the company says, no, we do it the same for everybody, then you're not the right sponsor for me. You got to go out of your way and do something for my viewers for a limited time. Doesn't have to be forever. You've got to make an unheard of discounted value. You've got to offer an unheard of discount to what you're selling to my audience. And if you say, well, we don't do it that way, sorry, we couldn't make ends meet. If you reconsider, let me know. So I'm looking out for you, not just grabbing any sponsorship money and putting it in my pocket. It's got to have a benefit to my viewer, not just a benefit to me. And you'd be surprised how difficult this is. It's companies are not accustomed to content creators saying this to them. They're not quite sure how to react to it. You want us to do what? You realize if you're going to get a percentage of the sales and the sales are heavily discounted, then you're going to make less money. I'm like, I'll make it up in quantity. So instead of selling 100 copies, we'll sell 400 copies, and then I'll make more money because you sold more. I'd rather get the product in more hands to make it more affordable to people and make sure that they're not getting the same exact discount they could get from anybody else. Then what's the point? What's the whole point of it? I don't want to do that. So as long as your contributions come in and you guys are as supportive as you've been, I can afford to hold my ground on this one. And you'll know that if I'm promoting a company here, that they have gone above and beyond and met my demand, that I'm looking out for you guys. And if you don't see the deal, if you don't see the value in it, I mean, I did my part. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to, if you don't think the product is a good product and you're not going to pay for it at any price, and nothing I can do about that. But for everybody else who recognizes the value of that product and what it sells for, they'll see that they've never seen the price that low before, and it will be for a very limited time. It won't be forever. And if they choose to take advantage of that, it makes everybody happy. The sponsor is happy they sold a lot of copies. My viewers are happy they got a good deal. I'm happy I got a sponsor and was able to help the sponsor get new customers and help my viewers get a solid product at a really, really good price. That is a tough deal to find participation from companies who want to create the rules. They don't want to follow my rules. They want to follow their rules. So don't hold your breath, but I am working on it. Remember, I don't quit. I don't give up. If they don't want to play ball, we'll go to somebody else who does. It's fine. There's a lot of companies out there, and then you won't be inundated, because let's face it, if every company was willing to jump on that deal, this would be nothing but a big advertisement. Neither one of us want that. I think that's safe to say. Safe to assume. How about if I take that dongle out, huh? I get there. Now, what I have to build for Roy is essentially everything you've been seeing me do today, except, of course, the HD, I keep calling it HD, the H370 HD3 motherboard I'll be using for Roy is not one of the used boards. He wants a new one. And I have 3 additional new boards, brand new in a box. And I won't be using an i5. We'll be using a 9700K, just like the previous build. Scythe Mugen 5, just like the previous build. We are using the EVGA Bronze 600 watt power supply, which is a little different. It's the same manufacturer, different model, because we need a little additional power for the GeForce GTX 1660 that will be installed, along with the Wi-Fi adapter, and we've got some Corsair Vengeance. This is 32 gigs of 2666. You know, Intel's processors are fine. With memory speed, it doesn't really make much difference, XMP or not. We've got the Samsung 970 EVO Plus. I just talked about $349.99, 2 terabytes, one of the fastest NVMe drives on the market. That's Gen 3. So again, for Intel, if you're going to X570 and AMD, you might as well go Gen 4. Again, the difference in actual performance, depending on how you use the computer, may not be noticeable. Your boot time is going to be pretty well identical regardless. Applications may load milliseconds quicker. Where you're going to see the performance is if it's something that's really heavily I/O intensive with the storage. Most people don't. Like if you're using Microsoft's newest flight simulator, like that's the new Crisis, right? That's the thing that's just going to pound the heck out of your CPU and your GPU. No matter how much you've spent, it's not enough. So will it Crisis is now will it Microsoft Flight Sim. That's a big and intense game, resource heavy, and it sets a new benchmark for requirements, for minimum requirements for people that are flight simulator enthusiasts. They're going to want, you know, the best of all of it, and they're going to want that Gen 4 transfer speed. My understanding is it's very resource intensive on your input output, on your graphics, on your CPU. The minimum requirements on this are outrageous. But that's what pushes us forward. And there'll be people struggling to get that thing to run at high settings for a couple of years for the hardware to catch up to it. And that's what we want to see. And nothing but good things coming out of that flight sim. A lot of people loving it. Again, there's another subset of people that are, what's the word? They're enthusiasts in there's a word. They're just flying enthusiasts, whether they're flying a prop plane or a commercial airliner. And, you know, like the program's got some bugs. Apparently you can actually fly into outer space. And there's some wrong things, like a monolith in Australia, because someone typoed a building to be 212 stories tall, and it somehow made its way into the game. And I'm sure that'll all be corrected, but it's supposedly very realistic and very good for people that are enthusiasts to flight sims and flying, which there are many. And they anticipate it's going to result in an average spending, if they anticipate the number of copies of this program that will be sold, it's going to bump upgrades on an average of about $1,100 per person, resulting in, you know, $1 billion or something in hardware sales because of this game over the course of the next year or so. That's the prediction from the pros, and, you know, hey, whatever, it's all good. I'm kind of curious, you know, how big this game is. I'm not a flight sim person myself, but I am a little curious about the hype. Okay, let's get the CPU out. And I'll put that there. I'm having a little trouble seating this cover. Okay. I want to strongly advise you, I know I've said this before, if you're a first-time builder, buying used parts is not recommended because you may not have all the tools to properly diagnose, nor will you necessarily be able to identify if you've done something incorrectly or if you have a bad part. So for a first-time builder, I'm strongly recommending you buy all new parts. Oh, see, I put it in upside down. That's all right. If you choose not to, good luck. What do I do with the box? I'm just putting the motherboard back in the box just the way it was, so when I go to use it, I have everything together and I'm not missing any little pieces. That will drive me crazy. Put my CPU back. See, I'm so glad I upgraded my machine because now I have this little spare i5-8400. And look at how it's already come into use several times. And that spare RAM seems to work fine. Our M.2 drive is good. We got the power cable. And I've removed the mouse dongle, so everything is good. And I guess now we can feed the dogs and wrap things up for today. I still have to build Roy's machine. Hey, what can I do? What can I do? Let's get these guys fed. How about that? Let me move the camera towards Jimmy's food leap. You gonna make a food leap? Are you guys hungry? Those are some big claws there, buddy. Let's see, let's point over this way. We'll go right there. There we go. All right, you're gonna be a big jump for me, okay? I want you to be a big jump off of the tile and onto the carpet right after I feed your brother, okay? Okay, let's do it. All right, you hungry? Okay, make a jump. Go, 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 go. Jump. Oh, come on. You just didn't even try. I know, look at you. Come here. All right, now run again. Let's go. Come on, let's go eat. Let's go. Jump, jump, jump. You're just not into it today, huh? You're not into it today. All right, well, that's all right. You can eat. Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead. All right. Let's put this over here. Let's put this over here. We'll put that over there. Done with this RAM, so I will put it back over here. Where did I have this? Over here, I think is where I put it. Somebody, all right, one of you out there sent me some makeup brushes from Amazon, and I'm very confused. What are you trying to say? Do I need makeup? Somebody sent me makeup brushes. Now, I imagine this is for cleaning something. I'm very puzzled. There was no gift receipt. It doesn't say who it's from or why it was sent. It's not on my wish list. It's a very random thing to get in the mail. However, thank you, I think, for the makeup. I guess I'm going to do makeup tutorials now. I don't know what to do with this. It's weird. It's a weird thing to get in the mail. What is this for? Anybody? Anyone? No. Is it cookie time? Is it time for some cookies? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get some cookies. Let's get some cookies. There he is. There he is. There they are. There's the boys. Ooh, watch your head. Don't break my counter with your old noggin. All right. Uh-oh. There's only 2 cookies in there. I know, there's only 2. What do you want me to do? Make some more cookies. Well, and you're hooked on my microphone. All right. I don't know what you're saying other than cookies. Hold on. Let's see what we got in here. Let's see what we got in here. All right. I think this is what they want. I think they want these. I wish there was some way they could tell me. I gotta reload. These things just vanish. They evaporate. Strangest phenomenon. I put them in here, I load it up, and then like 2 days later, it's like empty. How does that even happen? Okay. Let's see what we got going on over here. Let's see what we have. Jimmy, Lyle. Okay. You don't want that box? Okay. No. Stay. You. Speak. Stare at me blankly. Good boy. Okay. You want that? Okay. You want this one? Chomp. Oh, and he's going to eat it here? He's not taking it outside? Oh, it's a special treat today. You're allowing me to join you for dinner? Wow. It is a special day. Okay. Did you get it all? Wow. Well, that escalated quickly. Okay, so we just had a little delivery here. Hold on. Oh, I know what this is. I know what this is. I know what this is. This is a good day. It's a good day. Oh. Yes, 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 yes. Boom, there it is. And if the camera would focus and you could read the numbers, wouldn't that be great? There it is. The highly coveted, newly released 10850K. Oh, excuse you, Lyle. The 10850K, the 10 the 10900Ks are so expensive. I've seen them $300, $400 over MSRP. That chip should be $530, maybe $550. So if you're seeing 10900Ks available for $700, $800, $900, you're getting ripped off if you pay that kind of money. This is a 10850K. It's pretty darn close to a 10900K. Very, very close, but easy to get, comparatively speaking. 100 megahertz slower, I guess, but otherwise it's fast, runs nice and cool. Lots of cores. It's K, so there's no heat sink included. We have to add our own. That's going to go in here, and the one in here is going to go in something else. What I've got in there is a 10700, and the 10700 to a 10850, again, diminutive improvement. However, showpiece. So, I want to give it the best of everything, even though there's not a whole lot of difference. Because that's what gets views. Hey, you can't take that. Hey. Hey, no, give me that. Give me this. No. Oh, you're a brat. Don't you do that. Give me this. Oh, and now you want to play? Is that it? So what he's done is, this is a piece of paper that separates the layers of biscuits on the dog biscuits. And, it smells like dog biscuits, and he wants it, and no, hey, you just spit it out. Spit it out. No, give me that. Give me this. Give me it. That's... Are you a cat? What are you doing? Wait. Spit it. Yeah. Come on. Chomp. No. What a brat. This is why I can't have nice things. All right, where was I? If I can keep this under 4 hours, that would be great. Arvid Belaris with a 200 Norwegian kroner contribution. Thank you very much. It's a very generous contribution. 200 Norwegian krona is the equivalent to what? About $22. About one kroner is about 11 cents US. It's still a very nice contribution, very generous, and I appreciate it very much. And it's nice to know people all the way in Norway are enjoying the channel. So Arvid, thank you for your continued contribution. Nunman1962 contributes $30. He says, hey, Carrie, I arrived late today. Thanks for showing the motherboard test. But since you mentioned Cardi B, I now have to listen to my Led Zeppelin, the Birds, and some Who for good measure to get that out of my mind now. I understand. I understand. You know, it's an age-related thing, right? So it's fine. It's all music, man. It's all music. Newt Soyil has contributed 50 Norwegian kroner. He says, here's small attention from Amazon coming to your inbox. Thank you for your videos. Well, thank you, Newt. That's very kind of you. I see Marty OL in there and Flappity. T.A. Morton Sr. contributes $5. He says, here's some money for a Coke and treats for the dogs. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Andy W386 with a £2 contribution. Windows fully installed in like 7 minutes. I love tech. Yeah, right? I mean, it's an i5. That's what I'm saying. And not even a top-of-the-line NVMe drive. Malcolm Fogarty with $5 Australian, Rockin' Rob. And Brian Burns, thanks also to Stephen Clark and OG Gaming. Thanks to Richard Sweden and John Yasuda, of course. Eric Wilson and Glenn's Music. Peter Sprague and Francis Martin. David Smith and Yates Networks. Paul G. Marr and Scott Hallinan. Blackwatch and Frankie B. Ben Laird and Terrell Cochran. Jose and Veronica Lopez and Mira Ora. Jeremy Kramer and Glenn's Music. Rockin' Rob and Dr. Michael Ferguson. Wayne Trexler and Stuart Young. Michael Dane and King Spoonman. Gil Garcia and Flamingo Lane. David Starbuck and Gary Tatum. Winston Ang Lu and Donald Strickland. Sylvan Basudil and Ian McLeod. Jason Mirabile and Miguel Lima. Chris Keegan and Daniel Navarro. John Williams and 5Arg Tech. I want to keep saying Sarge Tech. Gainsey95 and Adam Burdick. Flappity once again. And Rockin' Rob once again. And Mira Ora once again. George Z and Chris Mole. Alan Maybreyer and Wayne Trexler. Joseph Hawkins. Thomas Robinson. Cooter. Security Van Man. Barry Russ. Abdul Azim Patel. Rick Rubisette. John Jack Wilson. Sharon Idle. John Blue Nose Studley. And our first contribution today from Alan Bradburn. And right at the end of the line, right at the final of the show, Damien Yez has contributed $10 and said, here's your $2. And treat pity in the rest for your knowledge and advice. Thank you so much, Damien. Is it Jez, Yez, Hez? I'm not sure how that last name was pronounced, but one of those three should have covered it. Thank you so much from everybody who has supported the show, either through contributing financially or contributing through kindness and support in the chat room, sharing the links on your social media. I appreciate all of you, and I love to watch this community continue to grow and expand with like-minded, kind, and supportive individuals. Thank you for making it what it is and for what it will be. I will see you all again very, very soon. Maybe I'll get some other work done. Yeah, I definitely have to get Roy's computer done. Tonight I have to finish the build I started last week. It has to be delivered tomorrow. I'll do that off camera. We'll do Roy's tomorrow. I apologize to Roy for the delay. I will see you all very, very soon. And until then, bye for now.